All right.
Bum. There. Bum, 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 bum. Okay, let me close this window. Okay, I will do a double check on the stream end as well, and then we can actually start the interview itself.
Sounds good.
Okay, I will do a double check on the stream end as well, and then we can actually start the interview itself.
Sounds good.
Okay, perfect. The thing is working.
All right. I think we're good to go.
I just will share the Steam page of your game as well on my chat.
Awesome.
And publish it to
I appreciate that.
Yeah. Welcome. It's for sure, man. Okay, okay. I think we're good to go, but I'd rather double check it, and then we can actually start it.
Yeah, no worries.
I think we're good to go, but I'd rather double check it, and then we can actually start it.
Yeah, no worries.
Okay, it's working. I'd rather double check everything because OBS is always updating the settings.
It's so finicky.
Yeah. Like last time I had to switch from the main audio to my earphones and it got messy, but yeah. That's why I'm always double checking rather than to realize that I haven't saved it or something. Yeah. Okay. Let me know if you're done to start. Let me know.
Yeah, I'm good to go whenever.
Okay. Welcome everyone in the very new episode of my Dev Live show. Today I'm joined with Harrison Tucker, who is the creator of Captain McSpace Biff game. First of all, I would like to say that I'm very thankful and very honored that you joined us for today's episode of my Dev Live show. And like I'm always saying, let's start with a little bit of introduction. So please introduce yourself for us.
Well, thanks for having me. Hi, I'm Harrison with Skunk Ape Interactive. I'm part of a two-man team working on a game called Captain McSpace Biff. I've been a developer for, probably close to 16 years now.
Okay.
I got my start in high school working with some friends. Back then, it was more of the modding scene, but I would probably consider myself a dev of about 15, 16 years now.
That's a very long time. Okay.
Yeah. I'm no spring chicken anymore.
You have knowledge, right? We can say so.
Yeah,
You're not
some
a starter
knowledge.
out.
Yeah, there's some gaps, but yeah, I have at least a semi decent base of knowledge when it comes to game dev, and funny enough, I've seen it evolve a lot over the last 15
I think it's
years, just the
important,
game dev
yeah, from the
scene.
player's perspective and the game dev scene as well. Yeah. I think it's important.
It's been very interesting
able to compare
watch
everything.
it.
Yeah. Okay. Let's circle back to the past a little bit. So, what is your very first memory with video games as a player, if you remember those times of your past? So, before game dev, from the player's perspective, very first game, very first memory.
I'll have to dig deep for that one.
Okay.
So my first memory for video games, it's one of two things. I'm not sure which one came first, but it was probably Mario Kart on the Nintendo 64.
Okay.
I remember being like, I was probably 4 or 5 years old, just like hobbling around, and I remember my dad came home one day with this like console, and I had no idea what it was, and I just remember being really, really excited about it, and he seemed excited about it because it was something that he could play with us. My dad was not a gamer by any means, but I remember him being excited about that, and yeah, that was probably my first video game. If not that, it was probably Sonic and Knuckles on PC. So my family didn't have a PC when I was a kid, but my grandma did, which was always very funny to me. Yeah, so she had a business with my grandfather, so they were very quick to adopt like online for like emails or anything like that. And I remember I'd go over to my grandma's house over the weekends, and she eventually got Sonic and Knuckles for the PC, and I think that
Great choice, by the way.
yeah, great choice. I mean, honestly, starting from the top, um, yeah, and that was like the early '90s. So yeah, that was probably my first memory. And then I was a big fan of platformers for a long time after that. Um, the Sonic series as well. My brothers and I would always fight about who would get to play, which is, I think, probably why we got the Nintendo 64 with Mario Kart because all of us could play. So my
I see.
guess is probably Sonic and Knuckles.
I
Yeah,
see. I see.
that's well over 20 something years now.
But it's still in the heart, and that's what makes you
Oh
love
yeah,
games,
yeah,
right? So
no,
that's what the most important thing. And I appreciate your story and honesty about this story. I always love this thing that a lot of kids grow up with their grandparents having given them something special with their love, right? Even if it's video
yeah,
games, even if it's just special occasions. I can relate to that. So that's a beautiful
yeah,
story in my opinion. Yeah, yeah. Thank you for that.
yeah. You
Thank you
can't.
for that. I
Yeah,
appreciate
of
that.
course. Yeah, you
Okay.
can't be the grandparents. I mean, they're always looking to spoil. So,
True.
even if you have strict parents, you're more
True,
likely
true,
to,
true,
get
true.
some video games
They
or
will give you that
sweets or
shield
something.
bubble in which you feel
I
comfortable
know.
and full with love. Yeah, 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 yeah. That's
Yeah.
very important, man. Yeah, yeah. And I'm very happy that you are still sticking to it. So you remember it and you cherish
Yeah.
it with honesty and love. Yeah, yeah. Thank you for that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go down on the road towards the game dev career. So, what was that light bulb moment for you when you realized that you would like to not just, love video games and play them, but actually start making them? So, what was that moment, or was it like a longer road, not just the one moment that, okay, I would like to make video games now?
Well, when you've been at it so long, it's hard to say there's one singular moment.
Okay,
But I will say, for me and my team, we go way back. So, the other person on the team, Will English, he's the other half of Skunk Ape Interactive, working on Captain McSpace Biff. We've been friends since we were probably 6 or 7 years old.
okay.
Um, yeah, we met
That's
in
rare. Let's say that.
yeah, it's very rare for a team to know each other so long. And in our case, we met each other in first grade at our school, Geneva. And at the time, the other part of Skunk Ape Interactive was also there. So it was my friend Ian Anthony and Jonathan Fielder. And the four of us would eventually found a company called Deep Fried Enterprises, which would then later become Skunk Ape Interactive. But in first grade, we were very quick to know that we wanted to make games when we grew up.
I see.
Um, and it's kind of funny because at the time, maybe only half of us had played video games. So, um, just we didn't have home consoles. Like we had been to like arcades or whatever, but early on we were obsessed with things like The Hobbit or Lord of the Rings and stuff like Bionicle and
Oh,
uh
nice.
yeah. We were big fan of Lego and Star Wars and all that kind of
I was
stuff.
so sad when
So
Lego announced that the fan project had to be
I know
cancelled. Right?
I was so upset about that.
I even
I
made
was
a dev interview, by
following.
the way, with them.
Yeah, no, I saw that online and I was
Oh,
like,
okay.
man, this really hurts because
Yeah.
you know, uh, I mean, I know less about it than my friend Will. I mean, what's funny is if you go in his house, he's got a long bookshelf with Bionicles
Wow,
all at
that's
the
crazy.
top from when he was like a kid, and we would go
Yeah.
over and play Bionicle at his house.
Yeah.
We were following the fan project, and it looked so good. I mean,
It did. Yeah.
especially, but
Hopefully one
uh,
day. Who knows? Who knows?
hopefully one day, they let up and let them finish it. But yeah, those cease and desist orders are
Yeah.
pretty harrowing. But yeah, so we started in like first grade. We started coming up with like game documents
Okay.
before we even knew there were games like Zelda or anything. We started kind of coming up with stuff like RPG type games.
I
We
see.
just knew. to us that sounded like the coolest type of game, like, oh man, The Hobbit or Lord of the Rings is so cool and Star Wars is so cool. I just wish there was a game like that with elements of that. Um, so we just went pen on paper and decided, when we're older, we're gonna make this. We're gonna learn how to do it. And then, eventually as kids, we kind of grew apart. We went to different schools, and come middle school, we weren't really talking to each other that much anymore
Sad
because
truth
this is
of reality
before.
and growing up, I guess you could say.
Yeah, yeah. You move away,
Yeah.
and this was before cell phone. I sound so old saying this, but this was before cell phones were common for at least kids. I could like run to the phone and call my friend, and if he was home,
We
he'd
used to
pick
yell
up.
to
But
each other, by the way, to each other's house, not just with phone, but
yeah,
without
yeah,
phone.
you had to call and be like, "Hey,
Yeah,
hey, Mrs. English, can Will talk?" And then she'd be like, "No, he's out in the
he's
backyard.
doing the homework.
Yeah, he's picking weeds and mowing grass." And it was like, "Okay, okay, okay." So after a couple years, you would hang out here and there, maybe at like birthdays or whatever, but you weren't as tight knit. And then one day, we're all around the same age, so we go to driver's ed to, get our driver's licenses and learn. And we just happen to go to the same place and get
Hmm.
the same group at the same time,
Wow.
all my friends. And we just, we catch up and we're just like, oh my gosh, yeah, yeah, remember when this, blah, blah, blah. And then, eventually we're just like, remember how we used to talk about doing game development all the time? Why don't we do that? What's
Hmm.
stopping us? And at the time, Fallout 3 had just come out. And that was one of probably our favorite games of all time, probably still to this day. Because it was the first time we had ever seen a first person shooter that also had RPG mechanics. Like, I was fans of games like Knights of the Old Republic
Okay, okay.
and you know Call of Duty and stuff like that. But I never played something with such a vast and like well written swath of characters and locations and everything. We were all stunned by it. Um, so we decided to get our start by modding Fallout 3. So yeah, that's kind of how we got our start. So that was probably 2010, 2011. Yeah, and we got to start by modding Fallout 3. We recreated our hometown. It was a buggy mess. I mean, working
Hmm.
in old Bethesda's spaghetti code when you don't know anything is pretty tough. I mean, we were doing goofy mods, um, stuff like you could pick up the buses in the world and load them into a revolver and shoot out a full size bus at people.
What the hell?
Yeah, just
That's
just like
crazy, but that sounds good at
seeing.
the same time.
Yeah, no, it was funny. We were just kind of pushing pushing the limits of
The
what the
limits,
engine
yeah.
could do, and then we kind
But
of
that's how
found
you
that
learn game dev, in my opinion. A lot of game dev started out from like learning, you know,
yeah,
with this method. Yeah.
we're friends with a group of people who are making another game called Ringfall, which is kind
Okay.
of like it's like a spiritual successor to the original Halo games. And a lot of those guys got started with modding, and
Yeah.
then I have other friends in the industry. They all got started with like just making mods of different games and using that as portfolio stuff. And yeah, it's not really that uncommon, but yeah, that's kind of how we got our start.
I see.
And we found that it's difficult working with other people's code when you don't know how to code. So
Not
we
just with code,
decided
but with other
to
people too sometimes, right?
with other people's code, especially when it's you know Bethesda games are great and all, but they're not known for being the least buggy. So imagine a couple teenagers coming in and
Yeah.
messing that up even more. So from there, we eventually decided, let's make our own stuff.
I see.
And then since 2012 on, we've been kind of making our own games.
Very nice. Very nice.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Let's
Yeah, of course.
switch the topic to a more personal type of question. Were your family members, parents, and friends supportive about this decision of yours that you would like to work on video games, even if it comes to like mental support and financial support?
Gotcha. Well, early on when we were kids, of course, everyone, says, "Oh yeah, follow your dreams. You can there's 30 kids in this room and you can all be an astronaut and I'll be a president
But that's
and
not
I'll
reality, right?
but statistically not very likely." And then, you got the four of us and we're like, "We're going to be game developers." And the teacher's like, "I don't know what that is, but follow your dreams." And then, it's the same thing with, parents and everything. But as you get older, your parents, my, I want to say for sure, my parents were supportive. Um, Maybe not financially supportive, but they did push me to, uh, you know, try my hand at it.
I see.
Um, that said, at the time, a lot of our parents were very much sold on the idea of college. And this is back when, you know, still college degree meant more than it does now, and before
Yeah,
everyone
that's
went to
true.
college. And you can't really blame them because when they grew up, people with college degrees were
It
getting
was their thing,
better
right?
offers,
Yeah.
and yeah, it was like a launch pad
Yes.
for
Correct.
successful careers. Um, what we found at the time was, for one, Lakeland didn't have anything related to game dev.
To game.
So if you wanted to go and learn game dev at a school somewhere, you had to drive, hour and a half away. Tuition was very, very expensive. So we decided to start teaching ourselves game development while in high school. And it's not as bad as it was, prior mainstream internet, but there weren't the same types of tutorials and videos and free platforms to learn like there is now. I mean, this is probably close to maybe 16 years ago. So there was some stuff online, but most of our learning was kind of hard fought. It was trial and error. Um, but yeah, for my family, they were pretty supportive. But when I told them, "Hey, you know, I've spent the last 2 years in high school kind of teaching myself game dev, and I've I'm not opposed to college, but I'm at the point now where I've met some people who have gone to game dev schools, and I've talked to them, and I seem to know about the same level as they do." And that's not to say that their programs weren't good. It's just I'd gotten a head start on them.
Why do you
So I
think that's the
kind of
case that they were at the same level as you with
well,
college education and
my
uni
friends and
education?
I were prototyping games at the time, and I would see the projects that they were doing for school and spending months and months and months on, and then I would talk to them, and then they would kind of come to me and ask for advice.
I
And I
see.
was just like, "Oh, okay." So I thought maybe they would know more, and then, there were gaps in my knowledge, and they knew some things I didn't, but the general level of knowledge was about the same, and I think that's mostly just due to me getting a head start on them.
I see.
Um, and there's something to be said about, when it comes to game dev or any skill, someone who is going out of their way to learn is more likely to spend more time working at it,
I
as
agree. Yeah.
opposed to someone who might be at college and, they're interested in the subject, but maybe they're just coasting a
They
little
will,
bit.
but they will only go till that obstacle is done, right? Finish
Right,
that
right, yeah.
task is finished,
Yeah,
and
it's like
they
they
won't
they
go
they look at a
further.
project and they
Yeah.
go, "Okay, I just have to finish this
Yeah.
project and then I'm done for the semester and then it's the next one."
Yeah.
For us, we were just really, really hungry
Yeah.
and we wanted to know everything we possibly could. And we were working something like in my senior summer, after I graduated high school, we were probably working about 18 hours a day on game development.
That's
So
passion, man. Really,
yeah,
it shows.
yeah, it's yeah, and our parents were not happy about it. because they saw that we were kind of careening away from going to college.
I see.
Which again, college is great. I don't diss college. It was just at the time there wasn't really anything in Lakeland, and we didn't want to risk the band splitting apart, so to say.
Hmm,
So we're really adamant about trying to start this company and get it off the ground.
I see.
But our parents, they were a little iffy on that and always very concerned, but in a loving way where they're just like, well, we don't. It's like we know this thing over here has some more guarantee than a couple high schoolers starting
A game
what's
company
my
or
audio here?
developer company,
Couple
yeah.
high schoolers starting a company in a garage seems it's always risky. You hear
Of
about
course.
all the successes in Silicon
But
Valley,
you
but
never hear about those
for
people who never made it, yeah. Or
for
rarely
every Bill
hear.
Gates, there's 100 Joe Schmoes
True,
that
true,
didn't make it.
true, very true.
But yeah, they've been supportive over the years. You know, we've had to kind of pave our own way and pay our own way. You know, it's always been supported by us working part-time jobs or full-time jobs
I
or
see,
anything of that sort. So,
I see,
in fact, I don't think we've ever had funding, which is funny because I think we're likely going to look for funding for this project. But yeah,
I see,
yeah, they've been supportive. Loving parents, good to have. But yeah, no financial backing or anything. And there was some tentative moments earlier on, and then after we stuck with it for a while, they go, okay, this isn't some phase, this isn't some hobby of theirs. So
I see,
yeah.
I see. Since you mentioned like you were working in video game industry as a game dev for so many years, what helped you not to give up your dreams being a game dev?
That's a good question.
Thank you.
So yeah, it's almost like it's predestination to a degree.
Okay.
Like you and I've talked to other game devs and artists, and I feel like this is a pretty common thing where you feel like if you weren't doing it, you would be miserable. And there's been moments in time where we were on hiatus for a number of different reasons, and it's all I could think about. Um, and I don't know what that is. I don't know like what drives that, but there's just something very specific about game development that we're all just really really passionate about. Ultimately, I think it comes to um, game dev is. I mean, there's nothing not like it in the creative field because it's every art form
Combined
together. I
together,
mean,
yeah.
it's
Yeah.
yeah, it's visual, it's audio, it's interactive, it's programming, it's there's nothing like it, and you know we've done some other stuff in regards to art, but we just keep getting pulled back to video games. And I think especially because, you know, video games, there's a very specific type of story that you can tell in video games that you can't anywhere else.
And the way more direct connection with the player, in my opinion, as well.
Yeah, yeah. Like when you're watching a movie's great, but you can only see a movie from one angle. You can
Sure.
only be the receiver of the information. And the same goes for any other art form, like a good painting or music or anything of that sort. Um, yeah, when you're interacting with a video game, you're taking in everything at once, and everything is reacting to you. So I think it's just the most immersed a person can get when it comes to enjoying art, and also they're fun.
Sure.
At least generally speaking, the goal of games is to at least be generally enjoyable, and yeah, I think that's what we like about it too.
I see.
So whether we are getting paid for it or having to work part-time jobs or full-time jobs and do it as a hobby, it's something that really draws us. um, it is a lot of work, and as we're getting older we're finding that it's a little bit more difficult to burn the candle at both ends. We can't do those 18-hour days like we did when we're teenagers. Especially Will, he's got a wife and two daughters, and you know whole family, and I've got other responsibilities on top of all this too. So, but I don't really ever see a situation where I give it up
I
entirely.
see.
Even if I were to, have to dial it back a lot, I still think I would do it, even more as like a hobbyist, kind of like how people, maybe occasionally go shoot a game of pool, or go running on the weekend, something of that sort. But
I see. I see.
yeah, there's just nothing like it.
I can relate to that,
Yeah.
by the way, like we discussed it before our interview. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So you say that you would have done it anyway without like the mental support of your parents, right? So if people would say that no, don't do it, you would have done it, right? As I
I think
understand
I
it
would have
correctly.
done it, because like I said, there was a little bit of friction early on, and especially the team as a whole. When we were getting started, our parents and family were, they were always supportive of us as people, but maybe not in our pursuit for game development
I see.
specifically.
I see. I see. I see.
They were, good parents, loving parents, but especially coming from a generation that didn't grow up with games, uh, you can imagine how it might be a little difficult to wrap your head around something like that.
Yeah.
And they're just going,
Like to
I
explain
don't,
to
I
them
don't,
why it is good for you.
right, right. And the potential opportunities, and, you want your kids to do the best they can. And, especially moms, they're always like hard, when it comes to letting their kid fly the coop per se. But yeah, and then yeah, it was difficult early on, just because we had to kind of really plant our feet and say, no, we're doing this. This isn't some this isn't some phase. This isn't like a band that's gonna break apart 4 weeks later.
I see.
And once they saw us working those long days, and then especially after we pushed out our first game, I think they realized how serious we were. And that's not to say they ever quite understood what we were doing, but you know, eventually they stopped saying don't do that as much. So yeah,
I see.
it really just comes down to, how serious are you about it?
Very true.
Um, because I that's another thing I see about a lot of new game devs is they try and break into it, and I don't think they realize just how much work it is. Because especially early on, when game dev colleges were first becoming a thing, there was this kind of thing they were selling where they made it seem like it was like all fun, and you'd see a guy just like programming away and just like, oh yeah, this is awesome. I'm just gonna add three more levels to this, and then it would cut to a scene of someone sculpting something in Maya, and they would have like a Xbox controller, and they're like,
Yeah.
yeah, this is so much fun. And then, just like any job, it's work. So
True. True.
yeah, it's just
You have the
you
low
gotta you
ends
gotta
too. You have
consider.
to consider that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
That's true.
But it's definitely worth it if you're willing to stick to it and push through. But yeah, it can be difficult at times, but it's very rewarding. Just like anything worth doing, I think.
Yeah, I agree on that. Yeah. Yeah, and sadly, I feel like since video games became a trend of a bit, as I always say, like
Mhm.
from the player's perspective as well, and like you said, from the game dev perspective as well, sometimes you can feel that. I feel like that's when like you pull so many people in who are not that passionate but have like a tick
Right.
in their head that they would like to do it, but like they do not understand, like you said, and I totally agree with that, how much work you have to put into that,
Mhm.
passion of yours or dream of yours. And I feel like that's why people start to be more edgy and judgy about video games nowadays, because
Yeah.
it's always a topic that I bring up on my show, is that like, and outside my show too, is that like I remember like when I was a kid, Like now I'm 32, and when I was like, I don't know, 14 or 15, gaming was a niche thing, right? So there
Yeah,
were only
yeah.
a few people around my age who were playing video games, and above or under, people weren't really playing video games. It was like, you got bullied in school if you played video
Hmm.
games. I remember even those
Yeah, yeah.
times. And I always say this and joke with this, but it's true that I wished back then that I wouldn't get bullied and everyone would play video games and cherish video games.
Yeah.
Now that people do and everyone plays games, I would go back to that time and rather accept being bullied, just
Yeah,
play video
yeah.
games with those people who really love games. Because like from a player's perspective and a creative perspective too, like I feel like it's so bad for the industry that like there's so many people who just want their this very, how to say, this very own voice to be forced into the game
Hmm.
dev world and the player's
Yeah.
perspective world about their own, very like crazy ideas, which is
Yeah.
not bad if you can cope with that and you're not very pushy with that. But
Hmm.
especially from the player's perspective, I always see this, that like those players who are not that passionate about video games just sit back and relax sometimes once a week or once per month, they will be the ones who will shit on games and developers. They will be the ones who say that this
Yeah,
developer
they're
should die
they're
because this game sucks. Like I never do that, because
mm,
like if I have a problem with the game, I try to explain that, hey, this is a problem with the game, maybe there should be
yeah.
this and this solution, because that's helpful. But like being harsh and being a dickhead, it's not like, but it is what it is,
Yeah.
I guess.
Well, yeah, and I can say, as a game developer, the negative comments always stick with you more than the positive. And I think that goes for kind of any
For
artist.
everything, yeah.
When you dump hundreds and thousands of
Exactly.
hours of your life into something, um, I can almost guarantee you the person who worked on the game is more aware of the problems than even the player.
Exactly.
But especially when it comes to things like AAA or AA, if you're working in the industry, there is a hard cutoff. It's just like any job. You have a deadline. And sometimes, you have to push something out that isn't maybe quite ready for prime time because,
True.
you're getting pressure from your managers or the higher ups, and they're getting pressure from investors and all these things. Like I have friends who have worked on big AAA projects, um, and games like Fallout 76 or Halo Infinite, and um, you know, a lot of the people working on those games were aware of the issues before the game came out, but eventually, when it comes to uh, big games, you have a deadline you have to hit,
True.
and a game can't sit on a shelf forever. That's one of the nicer things about being an indie is you do have a little bit more discretion of like, okay, I'm going to spend a little bit longer on this and work on this. But even as an indie, eventually you have to push something out, otherwise it just stays as vaporware.
True. True.
Um, but
And that's
yeah,
again
a
that
lot of people are.
misunderstanding that you were talking about before. Sorry to interrupt you. That like people do not understand how
Mhm.
much work it goes into game dev, and that's
It
what
is,
players do not see, and that's why they can be more
yeah,
critical towards games. If they would be on the line to really like understand how making a game works, they might be like more forgiving about these bugs or problems or anything, like
yeah.
even game breaking bugs, because like nowadays there is the possibility of like patching everything out. Like back then, like
Hmm.
10, 16 years ago, you couldn't patch any game, right? Because there wasn't an online feature for that. So it's like there was just a
Yeah,
disc,
I
you bought it
think
in the stores, and that's all. Like,
I think the move to online, especially um, social media in general, has kind of been a detriment to the game industry. But the game industry has, yeah, it's changed a lot in the
yeah,
last, 15, 10 years
yeah.
even. And I think a lot of that has to do with social media, and which it's a double edged sword
It's
because
not monitored
social media
really
is
well,
great.
in my opinion. That's just the case.
Yeah,
Like if it
yeah.
that would be that if there would be like a normal, morally, monitored, I don't know,
Yeah.
program or AI program thing that could really solve this issue where like people can be very harsh with each other. even towards
Yeah.
like creative people, I think that would help really, because like there are so many opinions which can change game into the wrong direction, and that's what I see a lot.
Oh
Is that
yeah.
like there are so many different opinions, and if a game dev is very open to listen to all the opinions, they will more easily go back to like circle back to some problems that might be not a problem, but they will say that okay,
Right.
we need to debuff or buff this weapon in order to like satisfy the players and have some newcomers so we can have more player base or a bigger player base, which is I don't know, which I feel like it's not a great choice to do, because like the
Yeah.
core players will stand with your game. Those will be the ones who are the
Yeah.
passionate
Generally
ones.
speaking, they'll be in line with whatever you're working
Yeah,
on,
exactly,
and
exactly, exactly.
and a big problem is
It's like
the
Ubisoft
type
games,
of
right?
person.
Every
What's
people,
that?
it's like Ubisoft games. Sorry to interrupt you again. Like a
Yeah.
lot of
Yeah.
people shit on
Absolutely.
Ubisoft games, but Ubisoft still sells a lot of copies from every game that they
Yep.
release, because like there is
Yep.
a huge amount of people who are buying those games because they grow up in those years where like Ubisoft was a golden company.
Yeah. I mean, Prime Ubisoft was just cranking out game after game that was amazing. Like the original Assassin's Creed,
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
Far Cry and
And in my
everything like
opinion, they
that.
are still making good games. It's just like they
No,
changed
no, I mean, I've
a
heard
bit.
good things, specifically recently about, like Black Flag Resynced. I
Yeah.
hear some decent stuff about that. Um, but yeah, when it comes to filtering out a lot of that noise, as a dev, you have to kind of really monitor what players are saying versus what they mean. Like there's that old famous quote from Henry Ford, maker of the automobile. He said, "If I asked people what they wanted, they would have said I want a faster horse, but in reality, they wanted a car." So a lot of gamers, they might have a gripe with a game, and they might be projecting this idea of how it should be fixed, but that doesn't necessarily mean they understand what needs to be done to
Yeah.
fix the game.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think the rise of the accessibility of game dev specifically, they see all these like tutorials or whatever, or these people just uh I'm kind of guilty of this. I love like a game documentary, or those like channels that will do like a breakdown of like what went into the development of a game and how it was made, and people will watch these and think, okay, well, I understand game development all of a sudden, and I know better than the devs do. And in some cases, that might be true. Um, but just because there's a group very loudly saying this is bad, this is broken, that doesn't necessarily mean that everyone thinks the same.
Or
And
that
this is
is
kind of the thing,
correct. Yeah, for the
or
game.
they're correct, right?
Yeah.
Ultimately, it's the opinion of a group of people, and you have to parse that information and
Yeah.
say, okay, well, they're upset about this. What are they really saying? Um, in some cases, I think there was a video documentary about like Halo at one point, and someone was saying the guns just feel weak. I think you need to make the guns stronger. But the guns were already, killing enemies very, very fast. And when you make a change like that, you have to rebalance everything else. And then they sat down, they went, I don't know if the guns are weak, but this we're getting a lot of feedback from players saying the guns are weak. So what they did is they just added more bass to the sound of the gun when it would fire. That's all they did. They changed the audio, and then they had those same group of people playing the game again. They get, "Oh my gosh, the gun! You fixed the guns. They're way more powerful. I'm killing enemies so much better now. Oh, you! I'm so glad you listened to me." It just goes to the point of sometimes people
Oh,
will
you
say
started
one
lagging. You started
thing.
lagging. Sorry to interrupt you. You started
Oh,
lagging a
sorry.
bit.
But that basically shows that gamers will have this idea in their head, why a game it just they understand that a game doesn't
Oh,
go
you're
as it
lagging. You're
should.
lagging. You're lagging somehow. I'm not sure why.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm not sure why. Sorry to
let me
interrupt you.
try this. Maybe
Now it seems
Any better
fine.
now?
Yeah, now it seems fine. Yeah, yeah.
Interesting. Well, um,
Sorry.
no, yeah, no worries. I was gonna see if I could maybe lower the resolution I'm sending it. Mm, well, if I'm not lagging now, I'll just
It's okay now.
leave it
It's
as
okay now.
is.
Thank you.
Okay, but yeah, basically, a lot of gamers, they'll know something's wrong with the game, but they might not be able to articulate why it feels bad.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's something that a lot of devs have to deal with and kind of work their way through. And then I can't imagine working at a studio Bethesda or something where you're getting thousands and thousands and thousands of people saying like, "Oh, this is bad, this is awful," blah blah blah, and then having to sit down and go, "Okay, what's actually happening?" Because
Hmm.
people are saying this over here, and they're saying the opposite over here. How do we actually fix it? And in the case of what I was talking about earlier, people were saying the guns feel weak and aren't doing enough damage, but really it was an audio fix that made
Hmm.
them feel different. So yeah, it's difficult to make a game. It's even more difficult to make a game that's fun and feels good for
True. True.
most
True.
people. And a big problem I think now is a lot of studios just kind of take advice from everyone,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
you kind of get this
Yeah. I agree on that. Yeah.
homogenized game
Yeah,
where
that's a huge
all the
problem,
edges are
sadly. And
sanded off.
even indies started to do that, like because they
Yeah.
see that sometimes it's working. And you know, I feel like I always bring this up because like I do play almost every game, even multiplayer games, story games.
Mhm.
Like I try to play every game from start to finish, and I also, like I said, play competitive games. And although I love Fortnite, and I spent like 10k hours with Fortnite, some people not like me for that, but hey, it is what it is, you know. Not everyone has
Hey,
the
it's a
same
fun game. I
taste.
mean,
Yeah, and like I feel like since that game had this big hype, and Epic Games
mhm.
managed to reach these numbers by really having not just the core players but always some newcomer players, you know, the very
Mhm.
very new players. I feel like a lot of companies wanted to make something like Fortnite that is appealing to everyone because
Yeah.
that's that rare example when you make it. It's like iPhone, right? Like everyone hated iPhone and suddenly everyone has an iPhone now, you know? It's like that's
Yep.
very similar, like, you know, example of like how do you make something appealing to almost everyone, like really almost like everyone is talking about it,
Yeah.
and that is becoming a trend, and then it's becoming like, you know, like a bread that you have to eat every day, or water, a sip of water
Mhm.
that you need to drink. And I think that this philosophy of like making such a game really like polluted the air, which is
Yeah.
breathed by like or consumed by a lot of people who are creative people. And combined together, like you said, and I also told you about this with the players' feedback and players' loud voice. I think it's a very bad situation that we are living in now,
Yeah.
and because like all I can see, all these big companies, like for example Bungie now, I made this example of like buffing it, debuffing the and nerfing the weapons of Destiny
Yeah.
games, and they are doing this same thing to Marathon too, like and
Yeah.
it's just a sad thing because at the end of the day, with the live service games, it's just becoming a content now that like they are, you know, tweaking the weapons or tweaking the characters just because of the players' feedback. So yeah, and I
Yeah.
feel like there should be a stop sign. There should be, I don't know, something that should like, you know, make them realize that
Yeah.
it's not a good direction, because like at the end of the day I feel like, and that's what I wanted to say with all this thoughts of mine, is that like I still feel like every game will be able to match their audience, because if you think about it,
Yeah.
like before
Yeah.
all these, you know, social media promoting stuff, where like we just only had magazines where we could read about games at E3, where they like, you know, showcase the games, or game trailers, the old good old school game trailers where like all the trailers of games were up, and there were interviews as well with developers. So I feel like back in that age, back in that era, every game could find its audience, although there were so many games. Like there were some
Yeah.
unknown Japanese RPGs that a lot of people thought that nobody is buying them, and they sold like 2 or 3 million copies per year. So
Yeah.
it's like
Yeah.
that's
Just
what I'm
because you
trying
didn't
to
hear about
say.
it
Yeah,
doesn't mean
exactly,
it didn't do well. Yeah.
exactly. Like it's not that you need to know the statistics, how many copies that they sold. And even if like that's what people do not understand is that like even if a game sells only 100 copies or only 10 copies or only played by 2 people on the entire earth, it doesn't mean that the game is not fun.
Yeah, exactly.
Like it's stupid to say that I don't know there are some story games or multiplayer games that are played only by 2 people and it sucks. No, it's like it's not a bad game. It's just you don't
No,
like it
it's
or you're
just a
not
matter of visibility.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly,
Well, it's like
exactly,
I know plenty of indie devs who have made just some awesome games, and it's especially now, it's hard to cut through the noise. Um,
exactly.
even back when we were kind of getting on Steam, it was still very, very noisy.
Yeah, because it's
Our
a
first
competition
game,
now if you think about it.
yeah, well, and again, this kind of comes down to barrier of entry. I think it's good as a whole that Steam opened up their submissions to basically anyone. Before that, they had Greenlight, which was a bit of a flawed system. I still think Greenlight would probably be a little bit of a better way. The problem was people were flooding votes with bots and all this other stuff. But prior to that, the only way you could get on these platforms was through publishers or maybe like a deal with like Xbox Arcade or something of that sort. Like really, indie games have kind of flooded the market in the last 5 or 6 years. I think they said something like 6,000 new game. No, 12,000 new games were on Steam last year, and it's just growing every
Yeah,
year.
yeah,
And I think that has to do with you have like just kind of AI churn games, and then you know other stuff. But as a result, you have these like indie gems that are kind of sitting in the silt, and they're kind of hard to find, but that doesn't mean they're not good games. I
exactly,
mean, there's plenty of good games that don't rise to the top,
exactly.
and people have this opinion like, oh well, just make a good game, that's all you have to do. It's like, well, that's not necessarily true, because you could make the best game ever, but if you can't get any eyes on it, it's not going to go anywhere. um and what's happening right now is a lot of the market is kind of going to these like giant games. So like AAA games, they have the funds to kind of outmarket anything, and um, their design philosophy I don't necessarily care for. Everything's kind of built around battle passes and FOMO. Like these big games want players to keep coming back all the time. So every day you log in for XP or
That's how the
an event.
fun died, in my opinion,
That's
because
how the
like
fun died. It
yeah,
used to be you would just
yeah,
go
and
online and, "Hey, I wanna
yeah,
play a game with my
yeah,
friends, and
for each
which
other.
one am I
Yeah,
gonna do?"
yeah, yeah, exactly. And Last Flag is a
And that's
great
back
example,
when
by the way. Last Flag is
yeah.
a great example from the singer of Imagine Dragons. If you play that game, it's a 4v4 or 5v5 capture the flag
No, I
game.
don't think anyone played it.
I did play it, and it's an awesome game in
You
my
did play
opinion.
it?
Yes, and
Wow.
it's an awesome game. It's an awesome polished game, and like that's why I didn't understand why people hate on it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it
Well,
doesn't
it's
have battle pass.
it
It just has the pure gameplay, and that's all.
I think the reason people didn't play it is because these other games are just demanding too much attention from them. And I think it's the same thing
Yeah,
with
yeah,
indies
I
too.
agree. I agree. I agree.
It's just
All
like,
my best
well,
friends play Apex or COD or Battlefield because they are
yeah,
the
it's
trendy games, you
you
know.
yeah, it's like, well, I'm not gonna go try out this new game because I don't want to miss out EXP
Exactly.
or
Or
something
daily
on.
lodging bonus, yeah, or
I
the
don't. I
new
don't want to fall
skin.
behind my friend, and my
Yeah,
friend's playing
yeah,
that game.
yeah, yeah,
And it
yeah.
used to
Sadly,
be, I remember back when I was like in high school and playing games on Xbox. If I wanted to play a different multiplayer game, I would just talk to my friends and be like, "Hey, I'm gonna go play
let's
this,"
pick up that
and
game,
they'd be
buy
like,
it, yeah,
"Let's
and
pick
play
that
it.
up."
Yeah, yeah. Same,
Um,
same, same. Yeah.
and XP and everything was great, but there wasn't like a timed battle pass or anything
Yeah,
that I was missing out on by going to a different game. And I think all
it
that
wasn't a
kind of came
responsibility to
around.
play the game, but it was for fun to play the game. Yeah,
Exactly, exactly. And you know, we've considered doing multiplayer for our game, McSpace Biv, uh, but I think we're gonna prioritize single player campaign first, just
I
because.
saw some clips, by the
I
way,
mean,
that you will have co-op. If I'm saying it correctly.
yeah. So we've been working on developing co-op. We did have co-op working at one point in time, but as the game has become more and more complex, we're kind of shelving it for the meantime. First things first, we want to make sure that the core game experience is good. And we're a unfunded two-man team working in part-time in the evenings, so we're limited to what we can do without funding.
I see.
If we were to get funding, we would
I
probably
hope
buckle
so. I hope
down.
so.
And
You will be able to do that.
I do too. You know as much as I love the single player, playing with a friend is always just so much
True.
fun.
True.
You
True.
get up
True.
to so much goofy stuff. Um, and just how it's designed and how I kind of got my start in like level design and everything. I really got my footing in the Halo games. I used to make maps starting in Halo 3. So having some form of multiplayer and being able to make some maps for that kind of gameplay would be a lot of fun. But first things first, it was always a single player game with a story and characters and different types of enemies. And if we can get that buckled down and get some funding, then we would go back in and polish up the co-op. I mean, technically it works right now, where you can, invite a friend and they can join, but there's a little bit of some weirdness and inventory tracking and that kind of thing. Can get a little bit messy when you add two players. So, which is why you don't see a lot of RPG type games with
Yeah.
co-op.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Big companies had even a statement about this, that why only a few companies make like AAA
Mm.
co-op games when it comes to RPG. Like for example, Borderlands games. Yeah, they have
Yeah,
co-op. Yeah.
yeah, that was
Yeah.
a big point of reference for us. And we were less focused on the co-op is like a nice to have thing. It's something we would like, but when it comes to it, we've always been a single player first kind of mindset because we want to. I mean, we grew up in an age before online gaming was kind of commonplace.
True.
I mean, I didn't get an Xbox until high school, and then even so, most of my friends were playing single player games. So, um, yeah, that's always been a big focus of ours, and it would be good to have, but not required for the core experience, but hopefully we can do it at some point.
Yeah. I hope so
Um,
too. I hope so too, because it looks fun. Like I saw the clips and it looks fun. So yeah.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm really enjoying the heck out of making the game. Um, I work in so so right now we're a two-man team. We would maybe expand down the road, but at least for this game, I kind of feel like we have a pretty even split on what we're able to do. Um, and adding another person doesn't necessarily mean we would be exponentially faster.
True.
I
True.
think a
True.
lot of that comes down to the chemistry and rapport
Exactly.
that Will and I have built over the years. I mean, it's
Exactly.
hard to, it's not impossible, but it would be difficult to bring someone into that and have a match that kind of unspoken synchronicity.
True. True.
Um, just because we have such a similar background, we kind of have similar ideas on like how a game should feel. That said, personality wise, when it comes to like what we like, we're actually kind of on different ends of the spectrum, which I think helps kind of balance us a little bit. So, I grew up playing a lot of like Nintendo games and like platformers and all of that. And Will didn't really grow up playing that many games. So when he got into games, he was basically a teenager and so he had more of a selection of what he would want to play, and he played more games like Stalker or Fallout or anything of that sort. So you know, we kind of meet in the middle and kind of bring the best of what we like about
Hmm.
those games into.
Combine it,
So
yeah, it's something even
yeah,
more awesome,
and
yeah.
yeah, well, and that's kind of how we came up with the idea of kind of one of the cooler premises of mixed space biff is having first person shooting and then third person melee combat. We had played a lot of games that had two perspectives. Like the original Star Wars Battlefront comes to mind a lot,
Yeah.
where you could switch between the two, and that was a game we would sit down and play at like a friend's house or whatever. Um, but we always thought specifically that melee games, uh, there were a couple melee games at the time that were in first person, but they always felt a little stiff and never as bombastic or as cool as like a third person game, like God of War, for instance. Kratos is flailing around and doing all these cool punches. And the nice thing about third person is you get a little bit more perspective. So if you see an enemy coming to attack you from the back while you're attacking someone else, you can pivot and attack in a different direction. Whereas when it comes to first person shooters, generally you're staying distance, so you don't really need that peripheral so much. So we made the decision to make that distinct split between third person melee combat and first person shooting in our game because we always felt, games like Halo, Call of Duty, Apex, games like that always felt best with the first person shooting, and then melee always felt better third person. And we were very surprised that no one seems to have done this before. Um, I've seen the shift in perspective, but I've never seen a distinct split where they're two different
I
modes.
think
So
Holstein
it's
is a
something.
game that has, it's also an indie game.
Yeah,
Holstein
yeah,
Holstein is a game that has these
yeah,
kinds of very distinct perspectives. Even they're free, if I remember correctly.
yeah. Um, Another game that kind of comes to mind that there's some more games that have been in development recently that are messing around with like perspective shifts. I don't remember the name of it, but there's a game I keep seeing on Twitter or X where it's like a top down shooter, and then you can switch to like third person, and that was always really really cool. And then
There's also a horror game in which like they are making the cinematics when you open a door
yeah, where
with
it's like
in real life
yeah,
cinematics. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I saw another one where it was kind of top down, and then it would snap to over the shoulder, almost like
Yeah,
Resident
yeah,
Evil
yeah.
style. That looked really really cool. Niles Sankey's the Razor Form. I don't think he can switch between two different modes, but he has like a pulled out third person mode and then an over the shoulder mode. And I think that came about from like testing. So that was kind of how our game came to be where it is too. Originally, Captain McSpace Biff. That was our first actual game that we made almost 12 years ago. Um, We ran a Kickstarter for it right out of high school, and it failed miserably. I think we made $1,000 on the Kickstarter out of a $5,000 goal, which was incredibly disheartening. But back then we just thought, oh, you can just put it up on Kickstarter, make a bunch of money. No, turns out you got to market it and all this other stuff. Um, but yeah, originally that game started as wave defense shooter, and then it kind of branched into a linear kind of campaign. At the time, Halo wasn't really on PC. The only Halo game that was on PC was Halo CE, which we loved. That was actually one of Will's first ventures into games because he grew up with Macs in the house, and Halo CE was one of the few games that could actually run on a Macintosh. And then I just remember playing Halo in, the school lab with friends and everything. Um, yeah, so it started as a first person wave defense shooter because we were playing Halo 3 ODST at the time, and we were just like, oh, this is awesome. I just wish I had a mouse and keyboard for this because, I'm only getting 30 frames a second. The input feels a little sluggish. And, by then we were kind of becoming PC elitist snobs. Not so much anymore, but at the time we were just like, oh man, PC's so much better.
In that era, by the
Um,
way, there was another strategy game. It wasn't a Halo strategy game, but like I remember you could like attack and defend with your units with the help of like a small headset that you could buy for that game. I cannot
oh
recall the name.
yeah,
It's like Star something or I cannot recall of
yeah,
the name. And I had it for my PlayStation 3, and there was even a bundle with a small headset for that game. Like you could
yeah,
move units with your voice, and it looked and very very good in my opinion.
man,
Just cannot
yeah.
recall the name of the game, yeah. But it was the
Well, then,
same era, and it was, if I
yeah,
remember
yeah, it's the
correctly, it was
same
the same
era.
year as well. Yeah,
Yeah, looking back, there were some interesting games around that time.
yeah.
At the time, we were also playing a game called you likely have never heard of it. It's called Nuclear Dawn. It was a
Mm,
it was a source engine game
okay,
where you could pick different classes
okay.
of character, and it was half first person shooter, half RTS. So you would have one person on your team kind of like commanding units and stuff, and the other people were kind of these like boots on the ground. And then looking back later, I think that did have a little bit of influence on Captain Space But yeah, so that's how we
It
got to
sounds similar,
start.
by the way, like Starhawk.
Yeah,
I'm not sure if you know that game.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Starhawk on
yeah,
PlayStation 3, yeah.
yeah. But that's how we got started. And the Kickstarter failed, so we kind of took a step back. We had these kind of grandiose ideas of what we wanted Mixed Space Fifth to be, so we kind of tabled it and went, okay, well, this isn't something that we're capable of making right now
I
without
see.
money and funding, because it was going to take probably 2 or 3 years. I mean, we were just getting into game development. We were using the free version of Unity. We were having to like build all these systems from scratch. And yeah, we decided to table it. And then that's where we started making our first commercial release game, Root. Um, that was actually just kind of Root. I mean, Root ended up being a game that we were very proud of and eventually wanted to expand more on. But that became the game we were working on as a result of the original Mixed Space Fifth Kickstarter failing. So
I
that's
see.
kind of interesting.
I
And
see.
most of our games that we've released are in kind of the Root universe, and we're also working on not a lot, but on the side another VR kind of
Oh, okay.
expansion of that game. The background you see behind me is actually an environment from that game.
Oh, okay.
Um,
Okay. Exclusive stuff here.
yeah,
Thank you for
yeah, exclusive stuff.
that.
We haven't really announced it or anything.
Okay.
So after Root, we had our game Deadlock, not to be confused with the Valve game Deadlock. Uh, so, oh man, I don't know how much I want to get into this because it's kind of like a rabbit trail, and
No, go
I
for
don't
that.
want
Go
to
for that. Go for that.
get into get into the weeds of our previous publisher and everything. But so we started development on Deadlock back when VR was not commercially available.
Okay.
The Oculus was out, but it was like the sit down one that you could only put on your face. There was no motion movement or anything of the sort. So people were making horror games and sit down stuff, but nothing full body experience. We saw the announcement of the HTC Vive, and we talked to our then publisher, and we were just like, okay, we just finished Root, the first chapter of Root, and we feel like a stealth action shooter in VR would be the coolest thing ever. I mean, our game Root is kind of, it's not really an sim, but it has elements of that where you can like pick stuff up. Like you can pick up a potted plant, throw it across the room, and the guard will like go and investigate it and you knock them out or whatever. And we were just thinking, how cool would that be in VR? like just being able to interact with the world and pick things up and knock out enemies, lean around corners to shoot. We just thought a stealth game would be the coolest thing in that. So we talked to our then publisher, had them get us a HTC Vive. We were hoping we could probably get it, a little bit before the rest of the market, but we ended up getting one of the earlier commercial releases. Played a couple games, like Space Pirate Trainer, Beat Saber, those types of games. And then we started development on our game Deadlock. And we built a wave defense game, and we just wanted something similar to Space Pirate Trainer, but neon with different types of enemies, and the soundtrack from our friend Jonathan. He amazing musician, especially at the time he was making very interesting, kind of bassy witch house music that was perfect for kind of half dancing, half weaving between bullets. Um, and then, from there, we were like, okay, well, we've made this. We've made the core wave defense, and we were perfectly happy with that as the game because it was a fully functional game. It did everything we wanted, but we wanted to do a little bit more. And then we wanted to have, trackpad movement where you could kind of move throughout the world without doing this teleport thing. Um, and our publisher at the time really did not like. They were afraid that people were going to like sue for like motion sickness or anything of the sort, and we were really disappointed because that
Hmm.
was the whole reason we started the project to begin with, was building kind of like a VR version of our game Root. And there's a video floating around, I think on our channel actually, of me testing the trackpad movement. And the demo starts with me like jumping off of a cliff and then like landing and then, you know, weaving around corners and shooting pop-up targets. And then we implemented stuff like sprint. And to be fair, it was pretty nauseating for someone who had never done VR. And we kind of dialed that touchpad movement back, and this is before people were really even doing touchpad movement. Now it's kind of commonplace for VR games where you have analog control. Half-Life Alex comes to mind. uh, you can play two ways. You can either do the teleport, or you can just kind of smoothly move through the world. I personally always like the smooth move because it just feels more natural. It takes you out of the game less. But with some feedback from people who played it and our publisher kind of pushing back on it a little bit, we eventually shelved Deadlock, hoping to come back to it at a time where people were more acclimated to that kind of thing. Um, and from there, we started working on a game called Denizen. I don't know if you've seen anything about that game, but we made a prototype, and that's actually on itch.io for
Okay.
free still. Um, so I think it's about an hour and a half long to play. But that was the next game we worked on. Um, we were just kind of desperate to get anything that would make money because our first game Root. Not gonna get into it too much, but there's some. It didn't perform as we had expected, and I want to tiptoe around this because there's our publisher didn't do as much as we'd hoped. Let's put it that way. Um, and we never had direct access to the numbers or anything like that, so we could never see directly how it was performing. We
I
didn't
see.
have access to like Steam charts and stuff like that. And to this day, we don't know how many copies the game sold under
Hmm.
them. Um,
Interesting.
yeah, yeah, it's a little.
But
Again,
was
I
it in the
I, I don't want to
contract?
get
Like
yeah,
you cannot check it? Like they have the
yeah,
ownership
yeah.
above it? Okay, okay.
Yeah, so
I see.
what we ended up doing
So it was a
a
learning
couple
lesson
years
for you
back.
too, then.
Yeah, learning lesson. Well, and this is kind of a lesson to, and I don't want to. badmouth, our publisher, but kind of a word of warning to people um, looking for publishers, and this is kind of become commonplace where a lot of publishers will look for um, upcoming indies that are fresh but have potential. And what they'll do is they'll kind
The
of
money
come to
makers,
you and
let's say.
say, yeah, they'll come to you and go, hey, yeah, you need a publisher. We can help market your game. Just sign with
No,
us.
I've been
We'll
there. I've
we'll only
seen
take
some publishers as well because I worked on video games as well as a game dev, and I've
yeah,
got connected with some publishers who were like, when they started to talk with us and with me especially, like it was so weird to see how much of percentage they want after
yeah,
sales and
yeah,
everything. So it's like, and when I asked them what are you doing, for us, then they
yep, yeah,
listed the bunch of things that they might not even do. So it's like, I feel like
right,
the promotion is the evil of video game development, because like it's a way other form of like being creative, and that's might be
hmm
the hardest one to like being able to sell what you are making. But I feel like these publishers that you mentioned that are probably only go for the money and they don't care about like really promoting.
yeah,
I feel like what they do not understand is that like how they should market the game, right? Because like
yeah,
I feel like the best way to market a game is to understand what the game is and who will play it. But like
hmm
a lot of publishers, what they do nowadays, I feel like, is that they are trying to label it, which
hmm
is I think not a correct form of promoting a game. And also like I don't know that there should be like a very sweet spot of connection between the players and the publishers if they are doing their thing right. Like for example, I don't know. For example, let's say the recent game Mouse, BI for Hire,
hmm
Private Investigator for
yep,
Hire, they did like this whole thing that where they supported every creator who
yeah,
were down
yeah,
on the line to stream their game or promote their game. And I feel like what a lot of like publishers do is that like they select only a few creators, who they think that they are
yeah,
good or they are friends with because of someone, because of
yep,
connections, and they let them, promote the game, even if that promotion means that they will shit over the game. Like they will have some
yeah,
very, harsh opinion on the game because they think that, oh, they have big numbers, they can say whatever. But like
right.
in the
Yeah, they're
very
not
exactly,
they're not pinpointing their marketing. Yeah, and
exactly,
and
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 like
that's not to say that the publisher isn't giving it a shot.
yeah, it's like I'm not
It just
blaming them.
means
It's just
they
like they do not understand the whole ecosystem, and I'm saying this because I I know exactly where, for example, I know some streamers, including me as well. When I do my content or I see those streamers who I'm watching, when they are streaming a type of game that they like, they will be able to sell. And that's what I was
hmm
thinking about like some days ago. That a very good method of like solving this issue would be that like there would be to every game there would be a direct link,
mm,
and if
yeah,
somebody clicks from the stream, you could track as a publisher or a developer if somebody bought it. It's a system that
yeah,
exists, but it's not working very well because it's just available
yeah,
for a
no,
few games, right? And if this system would be inherited by all the publishers and all the developers, that you just post your creator link, video game journalist link, and if somebody is trying to support that person, they will get a percentage. Epic Game or Epic Games, sorry, does that with a Fortnite in every game, and it works for them, right? Because it's money
yeah,
and money.
yeah,
It's
no,
win-win for everyone, and like that's the whole case. Is that like if there is not a system where you can track that, like creators, YouTubers, video makers, journalists
yeah. It's
really
hard to
promote
say
your
how
game.
effective it
Yeah,
is.
exactly,
Yeah,
exactly. And like the whole problem, for example, with Twitch. I'm 12 years on Twitch and I've seen it all. Like most people bot
yeah,
themselves. Like you have hundreds of views and like only one person is commenting in the chat. It's like crazy, and
yeah,
that bothers me
yeah. So
because
you
like
reach out to someone, and you go, oh well, this person has
exactly,
500,000 subscribers, and it's just like,
Exactly.
Well,
Exactly.
first
And
of all, you're making a first-person shooter and they only stream cozy games. And then
exactly.
on top of
Exactly.
that, they're botted, so
Exactly.
yeah,
So it's
and
it's a
it's
very fogged
again,
up
it's
thing.
not the fault of the publisher, but you know,
But
it's
still it is
it
sometimes,
yeah.
in my opinion. So
Sometimes
it's like,
it can be. So generally speaking, what I recommend is finding a publisher with a solid track record. So look at how they handle the marketing for all their games, not just their big ones.
true, true, true,
Um,
true.
and on top of that, it used to be publishers. The reason publishers would invest in the marketing for your game is because they provide funding for your game upfront. So there's a financial incentive for
Or
them to
making a
really
portfolio
push your
for the
game.
developer company because they know that
Yeah.
they can make even bigger games from that starting point, right? So
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So what's happened in the last like 15 years, maybe 20 years or so, basically when indie games kind of became a thing, a lot of publishers, what they would do is they would offer marketing in exchange for 30 to 40% of the profits. But because there is no money that they've invested in this game up front, there's less incentive for them to push the game because if you've signed with them and they're getting 30, 40% of your sales regardless of how much they push it, they're not trying to make any money back. Everything you make for them is profit.
profits.
So
Yeah,
generally
exactly.
what they would do is they would direct, the marketing they would
Yeah.
normally do for your game, maybe towards the game that
And now
they
it's
put the
60%, by the
money
way,
in.
because I've seen about some publishers that take away
Oh yeah.
60%. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
why I told you this. We had
Yeah,
these conversations with some publishers that I
I've
don't
had
want to
those
name, but
conversations
yeah,
too.
yeah.
It's just like, man, I mean,
Yeah, like I'm
you're
not trying
leaving
to
me the
blame them,
crumbs and I'm
but
doing all the work.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
It's
And I feel like it's a bit of a scam. Let's say that, because
yeah,
like
it can be.
there can be a lot of naive people who are so creative and so passionate with their games that they make, but they won't know this information and they know how cruel
Mhm.
this industry is from the publisher side. And I've
Yeah.
seen it. Like I talked to a lot of devs. I've seen it from the developer's perspective as making games, and it's just sad because sometimes very good games get cancelled
Mhm.
or get them to like a stopping point where like people cannot play it for a lot of like years,
Yeah.
and they have to wait for the contract to end,
Yeah.
and then get back to the game again, get back the rights of the game. So it's a very bad thing, and I feel like that's what a lot of people do not understand, is that like from the player's perspective, is that like having huge numbers on a video about a game doesn't mean that, or having a lot of wish lists doesn't mean necessarily that like it will sell, right?
Yeah.
So it's
Well,
like
and
you
it
can have 1 million wish lists and maybe only, I don't know, 10,000 people will buy it. So it's like,
yeah, there's well, what's the term? I think it's they call it the Burkett scale. It's
okay,
cuz Jake Burkett he came up with this he has a really cool game too. Uh his solitaire game that just came out recently. Um but yeah, it used to be you would get on average a set percentage of your wish list would convert to sales. In recent years that number is wildly fluctuated.
exactly.
Sometimes it's like, you know, you'll get 20% of your wish list. Sometimes you'll get 0.001% of your wish list. And it's hard to say, for just how well it's going to do. I think currently our game Root has something like 20,000 wish lists, right? Um, and that's after years and years and years and years of build up. Um, but yeah, also I think when we launched Root, I don't know if the wish list functionality was even there. Now that I think about it, um, but yeah, it's something to be wary of because I've seen people go and get like 5,000 wish lists off of a viral video, but by the time the game comes out,
They
you
forgot about
know
it.
the people have either forgotten about it or more times than not, the game doesn't meet the expectations of the people who made the
Or there is
wishlist.
another game that needs to be bought by the players because
Or
it's a
you
hyped game.
release next to Grand Theft
Yeah,
Auto 6
exactly,
and no one buys.
exactly.
I mean,
Exactly.
recently there was an announcement of a delay for the new Fable
Fable, yeah,
game,
I
and
seen it.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I think that was entirely due
Because of
to
GTA, yeah.
uh, when
Yeah, it's happened a
the
lot of times. Like 10 years ago, it was a common thing to like when GTA or Red Dead got released, a lot of companies like delay their games. Yeah, and it's understandable
well,
because they don't want to compete with that game. Yeah,
and that was one of our mistakes that we learned very very early with our game Root. Um, we were releasing in a pretty hot window. Fallout 4, Halo 5, Assassin's Creed, and I think like a Destiny expansion were all coming out within like a 3 to 4 week window of when we launched. And we even talked to our publisher at the time. We were just like, hey, you know, uh, should we delay our launch? And our publisher was like, oh no, you're not competing with those guys. It's like it's a whole different sphere. I'm just like, I don't know, because everything I've heard says don't launch next to the giant AAA game because no one's going to cover you. And he's like, no, it's a different group. And well, turns out you are competing
yeah,
with the
but in
AAA games.
reality, yeah, the sad reality is that like I always say this, and it's a sad thing that like a lot of people cherish indie games, but when it comes to covering indie games, not a lot of people covering
Oh
indie
yeah.
games. Like
Well, if it,
they don't
you
care.
have to
They just
look
don't
at it,
care.
you have to look at it from like their perspective too. Like someone who is making videos or articles, you want views on those
Yeah,
articles.
it's understandable. And they
Um,
want money. It's
And if
understandable. No, I
you're
get
and
it,
if
but
you're a
still, like,
streamer, if you're a streamer and you want to bring in views, what are you gonna play? You're gonna play, Joe Schmo's platformer, or are you gonna play Grand Theft Auto 6 the week it comes out? Well, chances are you're gonna play the AAA game.
yes, but
That's
that's
not to
why
say
I'm.
that you don't even support. It's just, realistically you have to cover the big stuff because that's what people are looking for. So
It's
that's why I'm
true. It's
always
true, but like I don't agree with
very
this
wary
thing
of
where like
announcing launch dates. And if you do have a launch date and it's next to a big game, maybe push it back a little bit. You saw this not that long ago with Hollow Knight Silk Song. A lot of devs had like a similar launch window and they pushed it either
yeah, true,
back or
true,
up a little
true,
bit.
true, true, true.
And I think that's the right move.
Yeah, yeah. In the case of content creators and journalists, I feel like that's why the reason I'm always saying that there should be a dedicated group for every developer. Like that should be a
Yeah, yeah,
system
I
that should be
agree.
built where like you know that you can rely on people who will cover your game, because that's so sad that like a
Hmm.
lot of developers are trying to reach out to like creators and they are not even replying just because they need to push their hype stuff in order to get money from their
Yeah.
viewers on Twitch and YouTube. So it's a very fucked up system in my opinion. And me as a passionate gamer, I always say this, that like those people who sit down to make content, even if it's a video game journalist, even if it's like a streamer, a YouTuber, if they care about video games, they should be able to take responsibility to sacrifice their views and their money in order to promote smaller games too. That's my
Yeah.
standpoint. Because like at the end of the day, if we can build together a system where like we can help devs um, not just promote their games, but at least people see their games, we can
Mm.
build an
Yeah.
ecosystem where these devs will be able to grow themselves out to a AAA level. And that's what
Yeah.
matters in my opinion, because in my opinion, every creator has their own dream game that they would like to build, and with enough support they will be able to do that. So on the one hand, we as players complain about that there is not enough variety in video game industry, neither in indie,
But
neither
when
in
there is
AAA.
variety,
Yeah, but there is
yeah.
variety in my opinion. But still, if they would be on the line to support these people from the starting point, because there are
Yeah.
nowadays you can get very cool games for very low amounts of money,
Oh yeah.
right? So it's like $10 or $5. Like it's not that much. And if you spend every month just $5, I remember seeing a tweet from a YouTuber that he like spent his whole entire year amount of money that he or salary, sorry, that he got for indie games. He bought almost every
Oh
indie game,
wow.
and it was so cherishing and so hyping up to see that people are really sharing these moments, because I feel like at the end of the day you support the company but by buying the product, right? If you or talking about it or trying to just showcase it. And yeah, I don't know, it's just for me it's a sad thing to see that, like I said,
Yeah.
with the last flag example, that everyone wasn't none of the players were talking about last flag, how only how bad it's like flopped, but when it had
Right.
like the very bad numbers, suddenly every video game journalist started to talk about it, and they even tweeted
Yeah,
about it.
and
So it's like, I don't know, it's
that's
like,
something I really don't care for is everyone's so quick to jump on a hype train
exactly on the
and
negative one. Yeah,
on
yeah,
negative, and it's because again it comes back to social media and how algorithms work.
exactly.
If something's good and nice, there's not
It's boring for a
generally
lot of
as
people.
much. Yeah, it's like I'd prefer a game that I just like, but if a game is good and there's not much to say about it, there's not going to be as much traffic around it.
True, true,
When
true,
it's volatile and people are arguing about something, that's when the algorithm will push it
true,
because more comments is more engagement. So
true.
yeah, I don't really care for that. But I will say in recent years there have been way more people doing what you were talking about. Like
True.
what comes to mind is channels like Alpha Beta Gamer
Yeah,
or
yeah,
Indie Game Joe has
yeah.
been like really big site, or Show Your Game, these types of, or Pitch Your Game, these types of channels, and uh, they're becoming platforms for indies to kind of get a leg above all the noise. And back when we started, there wasn't really anything like that. I mean, indie games were still we indie games were pretty well established, but there wasn't a lot of channels or anything
Yeah,
devoted
but
to
you know what's
specifically indie
funny?
games.
Circling back to the topic that I mentioned, where like we could only gather information about video games via like magazines or via
Mhm.
E3 and all these big events. I feel like around that time when indie started to be a thing and very small games came out, I remember that like the very small games, like there was a game called I cannot recall the name of the game right now, but it was a Diablo-like game with a very nice piece of art made by hands,
Hmm.
and it was a very funny one as well. Like there was a knight fighting like these witches and zombies and everything, and it was like a
Oh,
2D
interesting.
top-down game, and it had multiple sequels. I cannot recall the name of it, but anyway, the game did good by its numbers, and
Hmm.
it had a good community around it. And what I was trying to say with this is that like I remember all those smaller games that launched on PlayStation 3 via only digital version.
Yeah,
They
yeah,
were they were hyped up because around that time, people like me and people who were really passionate about video games, they were looking for games. And that's what
yeah,
changed, in
yeah.
my
I
opinion. And
was,
that's because of the
yeah,
freedom of the internet, and you can get every information into your face
yeah.
by TikTok, YouTube, everything. People got lazy. People don't care anymore for
You just
searching
wait for this. You just
exactly to
look at the
tell
Steam
you
recommended page, and you
exactly,
go,
and your
"Okay,
favorite streamer, YouTuber to tell you what to play. Exactly. And
yeah,
that's where like the passion lacks, and that's where like people lack of like searching for a game. And I think
yeah,
that philosophy should like be back again in people's mind, that like if you would like to know about a game, you should search for it. You should read about it.
yeah,
You should get to know about it. And I think it's true for every form of art, not just video games. Like it's similar, which is happening to
yeah."
movies and
Everyone
music
just
and
kind of
everything.
everyone waits on what the algorithm's gonna
Exactly,
suggest for them,
exactly. And they even
and
train the
then
algorithm to do that, right? So it's like a
right.
standpoint from
And
theirs.
and what happens as a result is because you only consume what the algorithm is pushing your way, the algorithm bases the next game off of the thing that was
Exactly,
previously recommended.
exactly.
So people kind of get in this cycle, and then you see all the time, it's just like, there's no games anymore. And
Exactly,
it's just like,
exactly, exactly.
what are you talking about?
There
There's
are more
more
games
games
than, yeah, yeah,
now than there's
exactly,
ever
exactly,
been. There's more
exactly.
variety in games.
Hmm.
And even people complain just like all indies make the same game. I'm just like, I'm talking to five different people who are making vastly different games.
Yeah, sure,
It
sure.
just because
You
the
just have to search
algorithm
for
is,
them.
yeah, you just have to look, but people don't want to put in the effort, you know.
Exactly, exactly.
And they say now that the video game industry uh, is making more money than both the film, TV, and music industry combined. Um, when it comes to their like large AAA, but yeah, I do miss the days when gaming was, you were a little hesitant to bring up, just like, yeah, I play a lot of video games. Um, it becoming mainstream,
And the
you
trends,
know,
yeah.
yeah,
That's why I
it's
always separate trend gamers and passionate gamers, because like it's not a thing that
yeah,
somebody is a hardcore gamer or a casual, because I don't care if somebody a casual or a hardcore.
yeah,
I
no,
only care if they have passion, but I feel like a lot of people nowadays just play games for responsibilities, like we talked about that before, like battle passes,
yeah,
or because it's a trend, or because it's hyped, or because like you have to, you don't know any other hobby, and it's comfortable for you to sit in a chair and play a game.
yeah,
And it's not the meaning of you are having fun. That's the main thing. That's why they are not having fun, because like
yeah.
in
They're
everything that
engaging
you
with it
do,
just
you have to
because.
have passion, right? It's just like
Yeah,
sports, right? If you want to play football or tennis, you have
yep,
to have that passion in order to enjoy, and in order to gain your skills, gain your knowledge, and even after that you might be enjoying it even more.
yeah, yeah. I think the general mindset around gaming has changed so much. It's become no different than like doom scrolling on like TikTok or just like watching TV. It's just something people do to fill their time. But it used to
Exactly.
be, I remember specifically as a kid just being in class and just thinking all day. It's like, oh man, I can't wait to get home so I can play games and just get online with my friends and talk to my friends. And what's funny is the internet's more available than ever now, but I feel like games have become less social.
I agree.
Um,
I agree. I
it,
agree.
it used to be,
Like you
when
said,
you played
buying
a
a game for each other and to be able to hear
yeah,
that
yeah,
person's voice and to communicate them and
yeah. That
play with
used to
them.
be that
Yeah.
used to be huge. I
Yeah.
mean, and even my friends who like didn't have consoles or PCs or whatever, games were kind of built around, you know, is it fun to watch and hang out and play? And I do think Twitch is kind of, filled that gap a little bit. And I do think that's really, really cool because, you know, sometimes, especially as you get older, it's like, I can't drive over and hang out at my friend's house and watch them play games. I mean, we're both busy, but um, yeah, I remember just like games used to be something you could just like share with your friends, and now it's all just like it almost feels like doing chores. A
Exactly.
lot of games, it's just like you're
Exactly.
just ticking off
Like
boxes,
a
and then
background noise. Yeah.
yeah, almost. I mean, yeah. So that's mainly I think why we stick to single player games with our development is there is a certain level of engagement that's required for that kind of thing. And we're making games that um, specifically right now with mixed base Piv, it's like the type of game you could like play with your kids in the room or like your little brother or your nephew or your parents. Because I remember growing up, the games we were allowed to play were like pretty strict. I mean, I wasn't allowed to play M-rated games until I was like a late teenager. Grew up in like a very strict and religious household, and same with all my other friends, and you know, so we remember just being like playing Fallout for the first time or Borderlands for the first time. We're like, man, these games are awesome. I just wish we could have played them when we were kids and had more free time. So now we're kind of going, just like, okay, well, you know, Borderlands is cool and all, but it's a little raunchy for raunchiness sake these days. So what if we made something that's a little bit more approachable to everyone in terms of, vulgar everything, but kind of still going for those same types of humor and style, and it's not over the top gore or anything. So
Respecting
if
the
you're
games that you could play as a child, I guess.
yeah, yeah, well, it's like we were really big fans of games like the Mercenaries series or
Oh,
Star
I
Wars
love those.
Battlefront.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Oh, we honestly, a lot of McSpace Biff originally was inspired by the Mercenary series, because we're working on stuff now where you can like call in like supply drops and that kind of thing, and then again,
Army
there
of
was
Two
so much
games had the
development.
similar vibes, by the way, as Mercenary series or sequels.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, and then in recent days, Helldivers has been a lot of fun for
yeah.
my friends and I to play. But yeah, just something you could sit down and play for an hour, and you can either just play it as, a shooter and you just want to shoot some enemies, or maybe you just want to not think about it too hard and just go explore the world, read some logs. Um, yeah, so I'm not saying we're not trying to make this homogenized thing where everyone can play it, because ultimately, there's going to be some stuff that's maybe not appealing to every type of person, but we're trying to make the type of game that we would have really liked as like, you know, teenagers, just thinking about just like, oh man, these are the types of games we really enjoyed. People aren't really making that many of those types of games anymore. So that's kind of what we're going for.
Hopefully, they will be able
Yeah.
to relate to those days and era
Yeah,
into these
yeah.
games. Yeah, yeah.
Well, because it's like everything now, it seems to be it's either just over the top gore and swearing, or like really gritty and serious, or it moves more into like the area of like Fortnite, where it's just like everyone can play it. Um, and we kind of feel like there's not that in between. And
Yeah, because
also
it's
just
a
in
risk, in
general, we
my
feel
opinion, from
like
the creative part to make games that have like very unique aspects. Like that's why I feel like a
yeah,
lot of
yeah,
developers are trying to backlog into the era where like they use aspects from old school games that people respected, especially now players at their 30s and 40s, because they want those games back, right? For example, a
yeah,
genre that we are missing nowadays is platforming games, right? Crash
yeah.
Bandicoot, Spyro,
What?
these
Yeah, I was gonna
games.
say I saw your
Yeah.
Crash
Yeah,
Bandicoot
exactly,
profile.
exactly. I would love to play a new Spyro or Crash Bandicoot or a medieval game or even a Scooby Doo game. Like, I miss
Yeah,
Scooby Doo games. Like, why they are not making
yeah,
those?
man.
And like, it would be so fun. I remember playing Samurai Jack game when it released on PlayStation 4, and I
Oh,
was like
yeah, yeah,
so
yeah.
hyped. Like, come on, a new Samurai Jack game, and it was awesome. Like, and it might not
Yeah,
sold a lot of copies, but like, it was an awesome game, and I feel like that would be the most important thing in my opinion, is that like
yeah,
people should not be scared as devs and companies that like their game won't be selling that much of copies or won't be generating that much hype, because like at the end of the day, like I said, I'm pretty sure like every game will find its audience. Like I know it's about
yeah,
money and people want to earn money, but at the end of the day it's a creative industry. Like you have to
yeah,
understand this, and like seeing people like smiling and enjoying your game should be more important than like
yeah.
saying that okay, the publisher is
Absolutely.
here and the publisher is knocking on your door. And like I'm not blaming anyone, it's just like I don't know, it's
Yeah, because I mean, at the end of the day, you gotta keep the lights on.
true,
But
true, 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 true. But like you said at
but
the very
also,
beginning, like if
if you
you
if
would.
you're in if you're in game dev for the money, you're in the wrong
No,
industry,
I
man.
wasn't. No, no, I wasn't talking about the devs. I was talking about the publishers rather. So I'm not. I was.
Oh,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
gotcha, I
yeah,
gotcha,
yeah. I was
gotcha.
talking about the publishers. Like they are trying to push devs into the side of like seeing money and
Yeah,
yes. Luckily, not a lot of devs are only. I don't even think that I've seen any dev that would be like I'm doing this because I would like to be billionaire or something, because it's not a thing.
yeah,
It's not a thing from creative people. Of course it's understandable that they have their standards, like you said, you have to
hmm
pay the bills and everything, but at the end of the day these people want to share stories, messages, their vision, or they just want to make the new Titanfall, like the
yeah.
what is it called,
The Well, there's a couple people making.
Splitgate team
Yeah,
is
the Splitgate
making
people.
the
Yeah,
Impulse game or something like that. It's called.
yeah, something like that.
Yeah. So
Well, it's
it's
like
like,
yeah, there's a lot of devs making those type
yeah,
of games
I know.
because
There
the
there
industry aren't
smaller
they're
devs
not
as
they're
well.
not. Well, it's I mean, as much as cool as Apex is, it wasn't Titanfall 3.
Exactly.
And a lot of people, you know, they like the movement of the Titanfall games, but maybe not the campaign, or they want to make their own interpretation of it. A game that comes to mind is Partisan. I don't know if you've seen that, but that game's so dope. He's doing some really cool
Yeah.
stuff.
I think I'm following him, by
Um,
the way.
yeah, yeah. I'm over in his Discord and talk to him every now and then. But he's doing some cool stuff where he's kind of bridging the gap between like Titanfall mechanics and like ImSim mechanics, where you can so it's like almost like half Titanfall, half Dishonored. Really cool stuff. And yeah, I mean, there's just a lot of devs doing some really cool, passionate things. And again, I just say, be wary when you're finding a publisher that you one retain the rights to your game. Just because they have a selling right, maybe put something in the clause where after so many years you renegotiate, but you own the intellectual property.
Sure.
That's very, very important. And then also you maintain creative control, even if that means, they give you less money or they take a little bit more out. I think it's worth retaining your creativity as a dev. Because ultimately, small devs, there's only one you and only you can make. Um, so yeah, I think as a whole, the industry has gotten a little shaky, but you know, there are more opportunities than there used to be for small guys. It's
Sure.
just a little bit harder to push through.
I agree. I agree. Okay.
But yeah, man, I do wish there were more games of that era. Like
Me too.
like
Yeah.
Crash Bandicoot was awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was a big fan of early Naughty Dog stuff. A lot of McSpaceBiff kind of pulls from
I'm
the
a huge fan
original
of
Jack and
Uncharted
Daxter
games, by the
games.
way. My One of my first multiplayer games on PlayStation 3 was Uncharted 2. And it's funny you mentioned,
Yeah,
I can
yeah.
relate to that when you mentioned that, like, buying a game for each other friends, because, like, I remember,
Mhm.
like, we were friends. So first when my mom lets me, like, speak via a new microphone, online.
Yeah.
She finally let me, and I met people and some Hungarian folks that till this day we are good friends with. And, like, I remember at those days we were happy if we found Hungarians online. Nowadays, Hungarians are,
Yeah.
like, so angry to each other, like, oh no, it's another Hungarian person, right?
That's
It's
everyone too, though.
Yeah,
Everyone's
exactly,
just mad.
exactly. Like, you are not even happy if you meet some people from the same nation as you anymore. And I remember buying games, talking online, and there also a feature that was missing back then is the party chat. I feel like I've seen it,
Yeah.
like, we wished for a party chat because Xbox then had
Mhm.
party chat before PlayStation 3, and we always were like, okay, we need party chat. How cool it would be to communicate playing other games. And when PlayStation 4 had party chat, we realized that it separated us from each other. We
Yeah.
haven't stopped. We
Yeah.
started really not buying games for each other, but we were comfortable by playing way different games. Like, some of us were playing
Yeah.
multiplayer games, some of us were playing story games, and we still talk to each other. And we realized that what we wished for again was a bad thing because it
Yeah.
separated us.
Yeah, and I think that's happened a lot, especially with like Discord now. It's like
Exactly,
you'll have
exactly.
you'll
Like,
have
people
10
gather around,
people
yeah, and
10 people
yelling
in a chat
way
all
different
playing a different
things.
game, and
Yeah,
it's cool. I do think it's awesome that, I can talk to people
yeah,
who
because at the end of the
maybe
day, it's a community, right, that is forming.
yeah,
So
yeah. But you do lose a little bit of something.
exactly.
Um especially, you know, most of my game days were probably on the Xbox 360. And I kind of got into uh before we started modding Fallout, most of my game dev experience was in Halo 3. I got my start by making custom games and custom maps in their system Forge, which that thing was so incredibly clunky. It's not even funny. And but my friends and I, would learn like glitches and stuff to where we could like merge items and make new pieces and all that kind of stuff. And um, a lot of my friends that I met through that were through the multiplayer. So I would go
Yeah.
online and you'd be talking to your team, which is like unheard of these days. Like you'd
Yeah,
be in the chat talking to your
exactly. The
friends.
team chat days. Yeah, yeah,
And then, a really cool thing that Halo did is you could party up after the match.
yeah.
So you would have this like little window before the next match would start where everyone on both teams would be able to talk to each other, and you could either like compliment them, or in
Or
most
talk
cases
shit,
you'd be like
and
talking,
then
yeah,
became
you'd be just
friends.
like talking down to them. And then, it would carry over to the next game. And then sometimes you would build a rapport and you'd be like, all right, that was a good shot.
Yeah,
And then, I made friends that way. And then we would take that party over into custom games and play some games, and we would stay in the chats. And party chats were cool, but I feel like the chats in the game are something that's kind of missing in a
I
lot of
agree.
games these
I
days.
agree.
And a big move to everything being so competitive, where it's like games like Marathon or Apex or whatever, it's kind of you versus the whole lobby, or at most you have like a small team that you're
Yeah.
working with. But I kind of do miss the days where it's just like these like big team battles and everyone was in the chat like talking to each
And
other.
they cared about the game flow,
Um,
right? I feel like back then, and it's
yeah,
also coming back to the topic of like that I mentioned, that people were way more passionate about the games they play. Is that like I remember this very good example about Battlefield 3. We played the Grand Bazaar map with two of my other
yeah,
friends,
yeah,
and like it was a free lane strict map, and I remembered like we had 60 tickets and the other team has like 600. And these
yeah,
days it would seem impossible to win that match, but we won it.
yep,
And it took us almost 1 or 2 hours to do it. But together with every random who were like
yeah.
using medics,
But you're like
they
you're
did their
talking to each
job. Yeah,
other,
yeah, exactly. And I
communicating.
feel like
Yeah,
nowadays what people bring into multiplayer games and story-oriented games as well is their problems. They cannot
yeah.
separate their real life from playing a game, and that's how fun
And
fades
that's
away.
the absolute opposite of what games are supposed to be.
Exactly.
Games have always been a break from reality.
Exactly.
Like, I mean, you had a tough day at work or a tough day at
Yeah, but you
school.
shouldn't talk about
There,
that when you are playing a game with your friends, right? In my
yeah,
opinion.
yeah,
Because I
yeah,
remember when I was a kid, we never talked about like any of the problems. If we did that outside of the game. Like we launched
yep,
Skype and we started to talk about other stuff that we might care about other than games, right? But when we launched Uncharted 2, we were like, oh, there's a cheater. We should learn how to go into the walls. I remember like staying up
yep,
late night after school and getting into cover and rolling our like controller in order to be able to go into the wall and get the cheaters. Like it was such crazy times, and we loved
yeah.
those times. And there wasn't like a battle pass. There wasn't anything to grind for. We just played because we loved
You
every
played the
match.
game because it
Feels
was fun.
different, and yeah, and
Yep,
playing with each other. Exactly,
yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, man. Yeah, I miss those days, and a
I miss
lot
those
of a
days
lot of what
too.
we're doing with mixed space biff is, you know, it's not. I mean, fun is like super important too, but a lot of the dialogue we're doing in mixed space biff is just kind of goofy and lighthearted. Uh, so I don't. A lot of it is kind of akin to Borderlands in that way. The thing we're probably pulling the most from is like those kind of like old hokey, like golden age comics that are like just so over the top and
I see.
goofy. Like in hindsight, it's just like, man, I can't believe people used to like talk and think like this. It's just funny. And then
Yeah,
you also have, I mean, we reference like old movies like I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Idiocracy.
I'm
Um,
not. I'm not.
Yeah,
Seen it?
I would I
No,
would
never
do
seen
I
it.
would give it a watch. It's
Okay.
pretty funny. It's a Mike Judge movie, but basically a guy, he gets sealed away in a pod as like a government experiment and then wakes up like hundreds of years in the future and society's collapsed and everything's super stupid and everyone's dumb and everything's like giant commercialism and everything of that sort. Um but yeah, we kind of play on the fact that in McSpace Biff, by the time you get to the planet that you're going to save, it's already completely gone to hell, and the people are like all dumb and inbred and have no idea what's going on, and it's just you kind of play like the straight man, where it's like you're very serious. You're like if Master Chief got thrown into the world of Borderlands. You're just like, "Oh, man, this is I'm super serious and tactical, and I'm gonna help these people, but goodness
But
gracious,
then don't care about it.
everything's everyone's crazy, and I'm out of place now." So, yeah, we focus a lot on the dialogue and just kind of making sure people understand just how goofy things are. There's some kind of serious themes in the mix somewhere, but, overall, the tone is very, very lighthearted.
That's
Like, even the premise of, like, who you're fighting. So, I don't know if how much people know or how much you know about the backstory of Cat McSpaceBiff, but I can go into that and lay the groundwork if
Yeah,
you're
sure, sure.
interested.
I'm down. I'm down. I'm down.
Yeah. So, Cat McSpaceBiff, it's this kind of, like, retro sci-fi game. Um, it takes place 1,000 years after the Cold War, between the Soviet Union and America, and it's kind of based off of those like old goofy comics like Buck Rogers or Flash Gordon or Magnus Robot Fighter. In Captain McSpaceBiff, you play as Captain McSpaceBiff. Um, you are a captain in the Planet America Solar Navy. So the premise of Captain McSpaceBiff, going back to the beginning, is uh, America and the Soviet Union. They had the Cold War with all the nukes and everything, and then also the space race. So in this timeline, it's like an alternate timeline. The America beat the Soviet Union in the Cold War, but the Soviets beat America to space.
Okay.
So in this timeline, essentially what happened is America won. The Soviets retreated to the moon, established a moon colony, called it the Soviet Moonion instead of the Soviet Union. Just a really dumb pun. And they hid on the dark side of the moon for hundreds of years building their forces. And during that time, America absorbed the rest of the colonies and countries of the world, and different parts of the world became spacefaring and found their own colonies, but eventually Earth became planet America. And then, one day, a couple hundred years later, the Soviet Union rears its ugly head with a force of robots and everything, and planet America and the Soviet Union start lobbing nukes back and forth at each other until both Earth and the moon are just basically a nuclear wasteland. And now planet America is based on Antarctica, in like a in tropical Antarctica, from all the global warming from all the nukes that have gone off. And you know, now they're expanding into the universe to establish new colonies. So this war has been going on for hundreds and hundreds. They keep establishing planets and sending the resources back to either the moon or planet America in order to keep a very stupid war going. Um, and in Captain Spacebiff, you get a distress signal from the very outermost colony called Boone 1E, which is kind of a play on the word boony, which is, just American slang for the middle of nowhere. Um, so you get a distress signal from that planet. It's more than 200 light years away. So you get told, okay, well, go investigate it, help them out, and they freeze you and shuttle you off. 200 years later, you land there and find out the whole place has gone to hell. And the Soviet Union won, and the remnants of the planet America colony have become rather stupid in the last 200 years. Like, they lost all their technology. They've been eating nothing but hot dogs and soda, so their diet has gone to hell. Um, yeah, so the premise is, the Soviet Union attacked on the day of a 4th of July celebration. So they have a super server, the American super server in orbit. That's, it thinks it's 4th of July, so it's sending down hot dogs and soda every day as a celebration. But when the attack happened, there was a giant EMP, and now this server in orbit thinks it's 4th of July every day. So the only thing they're eating for the last 200 years is hot dogs and soda.
Crazy.
Uh, yeah. So I don't want to get like too much into it because it gets into spoiler territory. But basically, you get there. Your whole job is to establish, you know, a quantum communication back to planet America, and then go home. Uh, um, but when you get there, you realize things have gone way, 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 way worse than you ever could have possibly imagined. Uh, Both the Soviet Union and Planet America have kind of desolated this planet, and now it's a bit of a wasteland. And your ship crashed when you landed, so there's no way home either. And there's an evil lurking underneath the surface of the planet that is uh, is something you're going to have to deal with before you can reestablish communications. But yeah, you're here to help these people who are generally kind of ungrateful. But it's your duty as a citizen of planet America to help the people who have kind of lost their way. Yeah, so it's just this kind of like
The
cartoonishly
whole
evil
vibe of the
character.
plot, by the way, reminds me of Destroy All Humans games. If you play those games,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It is
it's like a
not so
very big
dissimilar to
critique
those.
towards our human race, but still in a fun
Yeah,
way. Yeah, I
yeah.
love
So
that.
the
Love
thing
that.
with the Soviet Union is most of their forces are robots. So it's all like mechanical and AI.
Hopefully, you
So
won't
that's
predict
where,
the future with your game, right?
yeah, yeah,
Who
exactly.
knows?
Oh man, but yeah, it's and then I don't want to spoil too much, but the big bad of McSpaceBiff is going to be a Soviet supercomputer that is
Okay.
kind of running the whole thing.
Okay.
Um, and so that's where things like references to like Magnus Robot Fighter, which is like an old comic from the '60s, where he's and what's funny about Magnus Robot Fighter is it's more relevant now than ever,
True. True.
where it's like
True.
the
That's why I
dangers of
joked with
AI.
the future prediction. Yeah.
Yeah, the whole premise of that in the '60s was, people become so reliant on robots and AI doing everything for them. By the time, if they're, going to rise up against them, there's not anything you could do about it
True.
because you're
True.
so reliant on it. And, that's a classic thing, Terminator and everything.
Yeah.
So, and it's kind of the premise of Captain Space with a little bit, where even you know the Soviets who work under the AI, they're no different the robots who they serve. So
I see. I see.
yeah, so yeah, it's a pretty goofy premise, but there's
I love
some,
that, by the way, and I cannot wait. I hope that you
yeah,
will expand the universe into multiple games, not just one. By the way, that's what
yeah.
I
I
want to
mean, us
say.
too. Yeah, we want McSpace 2, Commander Quasar, all
I
these
really
all
hope
those
that you will
these types
find
of games.
a good publisher that is open up to
I
these
mean,
ideas.
they're
And
definitely out there. The main thing we're looking for is funding more than anything. But we wouldn't go with funding if the publisher didn't have the interest in the game.
true,
So,
true, 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 true.
but yeah, yeah, it's yeah. When it comes to like gameplay itself, I would probably say the game is most akin to old like Bungie games. So like Halo, the combat is not so dissimilar to their third person game Oni. I don't know if you've ever played that,
Yeah, I
but
did.
yeah, so it's like you have like different move sets depending on
Okay.
if you're like crouching or jumping or punching or kicking. Um, yeah, and so we're still balancing a lot of it, but we kind of feel like that's a pretty interesting thing where you take the combat of the Oni games and the shooting of the Halo games, and obviously it's not going to be 1-to-1 on either because it's going to be our blend of that, but we feel like that's pretty fun because man, punching robots, it's just so cool.
True, true. Okay.
But yeah, it's coming along and it's looking promising. Recently, we just got chips working, so they're not so dissimilar to the Phantoms from the Halo games, where they'll just kind of swoop in and drop some enemies off and then
Yeah,
take
I've
off
seen a lot of
again.
gameplay clips, like I said, and the gunplay looks very good as well. So
Thank you, thank you.
yeah,
Yeah, that's one of the things we're
like I've
working the
seen the
hardest on.
shooting range clip as well, where you are like shooting
Oh,
these
with the
cardboard robots. Yeah.
yeah. So,
And also, I've seen a clip I wanted to bring up that felt very like fresh take on enemies because you mentioned this or you started talking about enemies. There was a clip where like this small robot dog or dog like creature like ran into the robot and like he was doing this like jab or face opening move animation and he just
oh,
smacked
okay.
the robot and it was like very fresh to see that like enemies actually react to each other. It's not just that
Yeah.
enemies are rushing towards you, but if you like manage to like circle back around them,
Mhm.
like they can run into each other. Like that was a very nice thing to see in that clip.
Yeah, so what you're probably talking about is our grub enemy. So that's actually like a native alien to the world.
Okay.
It's not really aligned with the bots or the Spetsnaz soldiers. Now, eventually, we would like them to. Right now, there's some trouble in having them fight each other, and it
Okay.
gets a little unbalanced. So at the moment, we just have them all focus on the player. But eventually we would like some kind of like faction type stuff where the grubs are a little bit territorial and they will fight other enemies. um but yeah, what we've designed, at least in terms of enemy behavior, is we wanted enemies to work in both melee range and long range. So there's never like a distinctly like easy way to like cheese the enemies. So the grub, for instance, it's way more aggressive. It's like up close. It'll kind of like barrel through enemies while you're like fighting them. But it also has like a move where it will kind of upchuck acid at you from range if it can't reach you. And kind of the same thing with like the moon bots. They have these like SMGs that they can shoot you, or they'll put their SMG away and then come up and just like punch you and stuff. Same thing with the human enemies, but
I see.
yeah, I think the clip you're probably talking about, I think it's where I'm like switching between first and third person, where I'm like shooting the robot who's like punching me, and then all of a sudden the grub comes off
Yeah.
the side of the screen trying to attack me, and then I switch to third person to
Third
punch it,
person.
and then
Yeah.
back
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
um. But yeah, that's a big thing too. We've always been a big fan of dodge mechanics in games. And back when we made our game Root, well, actually, even the original mixed space have had rolling and dodging. And that was back in like 2012, and that was back before. Now it's like almost every indie shooter game has some sort of like dodge mechanic in
Yeah.
it, but um, it was pretty unusual back when we had started. But yeah, we're really big fans of that. So even if you are in like a melee situation up close, we have like a dedicated dodge function where you can dodge out of the way and kind of bait enemy attacks. Um, we don't really have anything that the enemy will do. This continue, they'll pivot and try to attack you. We were considering maybe going the route of like Dark Souls, where if you do dodge, that gives you a window to attack. But it's something we're still kind of playing with at the moment. Um, One of the big things we've been working on specifically with the melee is a poise system. I don't know how much like action games or like Dark Souls or anything of that sort you play, but basically
I played them
depending on
also,
how.
and I maxed them out
Yeah, okay.
also. Yeah, yeah.
So, what we've been working on is a poise system that's kind of tied into enemy health. So we really liked the health system in old Quake games like Armor. So the way Armor worked instead of like shields is, um, depending on how much armor you have, it will stop a percentage of the damage done, but it won't block it entirely. And what we've done is we've built this poise system where different attacks will do different amounts of poise, and the poise is the armor. So, for instance, if you come across a bot and they've got a full meter of poise, it will be blocking, 80% of the damage coming in. But if you get that poise down, it's going to only be blocking 40% of the damage coming in. Now, this is where we kind of bring in the shooting and the melee. So melee attacks do more poise damage, where it's like shooting attacks do more direct damage. So it becomes this kind of like cat and mouse game where you have to decide, okay, am I going to just shoot at the enemy from a distance and not do as much damage, or am I going to run in, punch them a couple times, get a lot of that poise down, and then finish them off with a shot? So, and different attacks do different poise damage, kind of similar to Oni. So, like if you do like an overhead slam, it'll knock out all their poise, or if you do like a sweep kick, it won't do a lot of poise damage, but it'll like make them flinch more. So,
Will
there's
there be,
like
by the way, a
a
story connection for this mechanic in the game?
yes, actually.
Okay.
Um, I don't know if you're familiar with the Dune franchise.
Yes.
But in Dune, there's everyone has like shields in Dune, and kind of similar in the Halo series, where these shields will kind of deflect high velocity impacts, but slow impacts will pass through the shield. And the story reason for that is so whoever has the shield can actually interact with objects without them. You don't want to pick up a gun and have it fly away because you have your shield active. So the reason the poise works is because it's kinetic. It's your fists and your kicks, and they're slow enough to where the shield won't act. So you're doing kind of like direct damage to this person. Um, and that is their constitution, so they're like more likely to take damage. We're still kind of like determining how we're going to explain it exactly, because ultimately what we want is mechanics first and then kind of wand wave explain it
I
later.
see. I see.
But yeah, as it currently works, melee does more poise damage, which is kind of like their shields, and then bullets do more direct damage. So, and different enemies have
Different stats of
poise,
these.
and yeah,
I
and
see.
different weapons will do different amounts.
I
Like
see.
the revolver does a lot of poise damage because it's just a heavy bullet. So it just kind of becomes this like sandbox experience of how you want to approach the
Tackle your
combat,
opponents.
and
Yeah.
then yeah, and then also you have things like equipment, so like grenades or landmines, EMP, that kind of thing, and they all have different effects. So
I see.
yeah,
Okay.
it's pretty fun from what we've
I
found.
can imagine, and I saw, like I said, I saw a lot of clips, so there are some fresh takes on how to deal with enemies, and I love that. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, specifically what we're really pushing for is players kind of weaving between the third person combat and the first person shooting. But ultimately, we want both of those things on their own to kind of
To
stand
work.
up.
Yeah. I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you want to play it like a Halo game, you can. And if you want to play it like God of War, you can.
Okay.
So,
Sounds
yeah.
interesting. Sounds very cool. Okay. Switching back to the topic, by the way, of personal questions, a question that I wanted to ask you is that, like, I believe in the statement that all creators who do create their own craft, they always tend to put their inner self into the craft they make.
Mm,
Is this statement of mine true for your work when you work on your games? And if your answer is yes, what examples could you name? Could you bring us to the table? Even if it's like experiencing loss, love, anything positive or negative during your past that you implemented or planning to implement into your game, even if it's mechanic wise, even if it's story wise, even if it's the vibe of the game or a message that you would like to have for the players to consume when they play your game.
that is a very good question.
Thank you.
Well, I do think inherently any artist, if they are working on something, if they truly care about it, some part of them is going to end up in the final product. Whether they intend it or not, there may not be a specific message or anything trying to push through, but just by the nature of having creative control and it being something you're making, it's going to have your fingerprints on it. Now, I would say a lot of myself does come through in the game, but because it is a collaborative process, it's not an individual voice.
Just
It's
you.
more
Yeah.
like a collective. Now there will be moments where I will have full control over something or will have full control over something. And obviously you can see that fingerprint, right? So you can kind of tell it's just like, oh, this is his style of making something, or this is something that he very purposely put himself into. But generally speaking, I don't think we're necessarily trying to convey any inner aspect of ourselves through the game. Ultimately, the game and the story and the mechanics come first, and we're trying to find that. Um, Now, most of what I do is is the level design for the game. So like environment. That's probably the heaviest lift that I do is building all the levels in the world and the environments. So ultimately, anytime you're walking through a space, there is going to be a little bit of, kind of me, but it's not me. It's hard to say because you know, I'm going to design things in a way that I would like them to be designed or how I would think a certain situation would be built. But that doesn't necessarily mean I'm trying to convey any particular message from it.
I see.
Um,
But still, I would like to
yeah,
say that I feel like it's you when you were like playing with old school games, right? That you mentioned, and like you were
yeah,
modding games, so it's like that feel of like when you design the maps as well. I might say, right?
right. Well, in we're
That
every
influence, I would
person is
say.
every person is a culmination of their experience,
Exactly,
right?
it's true. It's
So
true.
and their personalities formed based off of the things they've done and seen and heard, how they were raised, all these things kind of come to be. And especially when it comes to creative fields, it's impossible to make something and it not have at least a little bit of a
True,
print
true.
of
And
you.
also from what you said in our interview so far, I could tell that like you are so attached to that past era of your life, just like I
Yes.
do, that
Yes.
you would like to bring back those days of like having fun in video games, and you would like to
Yeah.
like have
Yeah.
this game for the players where they can experience the same type of energy and fun in your game as you did when you were younger.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's something that kind of comes in with how we're designing and essentially the type of game we're making. The genre you're making will affect you know, the dialogue options, the types of characters, the
Yeah,
levels,
yeah,
all these different things. I mean, it's going to be different if we were making RTS or a side scroller
true,
or
true.
anything of that sort. And a lot of the games we're pulling from, like the old Jack and Daxter games, Halo, Borderlands, Fallout, Battlefront, Mercenaries, Oni, all these types of games, you can see the influence kind of speckled throughout. But then there's also our own takes and where we're trying to push those things to. Because it's, nostalgia is great, but if I only wanted nostalgia,
Your voice
so
got cut
it's
out, by the
almost.
way. Your voice got cut out.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's okay.
If
It's okay.
I would, nostalgia is great, but if I only wanted nostalgia, I would just go back and play
And
those
play those
games.
games. Yeah, true, true, true,
Yeah,
true, true.
which
There
so
always has to be a
it's
fresh
kind of
take.
yeah, it's to see, where we can push these
True.
ideas and reinterpret them and then mix match. It's like everyone says, there hasn't been a new idea under the sun since mankind was founded. But you can rearrange some stuff and experience things in a new light.
True.
You know,
Very
there's
true.
so yeah, I think ultimately, yeah, there's a little bit of every dev in every game they make, even in large games,
Yeah,
where it's
yeah, that's true.
a
That's true.
collaboration. And I think that's almost kind of a problem when it comes to a lot of these AAA studios now. Is you have so many people working on a game, and the game is so large that because it's so many people, it doesn't have a distinct identity because it's everyone trying to pull it in different directions. So rather than having like a core idea of what the game should be, every single person has an idea of what the game should be. As a result, it kind of ends up being this like mass with all the edges smoothed off, and it doesn't really have any personality. Which is why I like working as an indie so much because when you're half of the team,
But I
you
think
have a
that's the
lot of
magic about
influence.
AAA games when you can like coordinate a group of a lot of people where they have this very distinct and very like weird but fun
Mm,
ideas which are very separate from one to each other, but they still
yeah,
manage to like coordinate these people working together and make something fun and cohesive.
yeah, yeah.
And I feel like there are stories around these games. Like for example, I remember Final Fantasy VII. There was a story about, I'm not sure if it was the writer of the game or anyone else in the team, but it was something like they released way later a story about that the train sequence related to the person who was working on the game,
Mm.
and it was like a tragedy moment and that at that person's life
Oh wow.
because he or she lost someone close to the their life. I think it was the story writer of Final Fantasy X, but I'm not sure if I remember it correctly. So I say that like when it comes to AAA games, it's way harder, and I agree with you on that. That's like to see these small bits and pieces of influence and the type of people who worked on the game. But still, I feel like if you really listen closely to the story and you try to consume every information, and you're an
Right.
open-minded person and a sensitive one, I feel like you will get it. So I was always on that side. That's like if something similar happened to you, you will get the message of the creator, of the
Yeah.
creative
Yeah.
person, but you have to be on in their shoes in order to get it, or at least be
Yeah.
sensitive for that information enough to be able to understand it, what they are going through in life. So yeah, okay.
Yeah. And
Stay.
specifically
Oh
in
no, go for it. Go for it.
oh, I was gonna say, there's like I said, there's the imprint of every person who's worked on something. It's gonna show through in some way. Um, but yeah, that's what's so great about being indie. It's like you get to tell the stories you want to tell and make the game you want to play, and sometimes you can make a purpose decision to maybe not include so much of yourself, and you know, like maybe you just want to make a fun game, and maybe you don't want to like tell a story, or uh, a lot of indies, they'll go the route of making like a very very deep and like interpersonal game. And I just think that's so cool that we have the option to do that.
True,
So
true. But in my opinion, every project is personal. So even if those
yeah, oh
projects
yeah,
that don't have like a very exact message to deliver, they still have something in it. Because like at the
exactly.
development phase, people always have goals with the game, like for example bringing back the childhood vibes, bringing back
Hmm.
the era of some games that they would like to play, and every bits and pieces of these kind of like thoughts that are made into like actual gameplay mechanics or story or the music or the art or anything that comes to video game making. I feel like they will inherit that person's thought and vibe, and those will be the messages, even that if that person didn't realize on the way of making those
Yep.
games. Like,
It's whether you intend it or not.
yeah,
It's
maybe you will
hard to
release your
use for the
game and
right
you will
use.
say that, hey, I always had this message in my mind, I just didn't realize when I was making it. So it's like, but I think that's the beauty about like being creative, is that like on the way you are making something, you get so much of experience of everything in life that you just inherit those experiences and those vibes and those feelings, and you just can avoid that, like you will put something in your craft. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. How have you
absolutely.
changed, by the way, as a person? That was the next question I wanted you to ask, staying on the topic of personal questions. So how have you changed as a person in other territories of your own life by being a game dev for so many years?
Oh, interesting. Well, um, when you've been doing it so long, you kind of can't help but change as a person. I mean, ultimately, when I started, I was, I think we were all a little bit hot headed and had a lot to prove. And I think that just has to do with, coming of age, being a teenager, and, eventually, breaking away from your parents and, trying to establish yourself and figure out what you want to do, who you want to be. All as a core, though, I don't think I've really changed all that much. My understanding of the medium as a whole has grown a lot. Um, like a lot of knowledge has been acquired. I've had more experiences, but ultimately, even though I've digested a lot of those experiences, I think uh, you know, things like core beliefs and those kind of things have stick the same throughout. But I have a better understanding of what those things are, just through experience. And you learn a lot about yourself when you work at anything this amount of time. So whether it's a hobby or a job or a relationship, uh, if you put a lot of time into something, you will. I mean, if you're paying attention, you're going to learn something. Um, but yeah, I have a deeper appreciation for games as a whole. Um, as a developer, I think I'm able to kind of pick up on the nuances that I maybe not necessarily would have picked on before I spent all this time in game development. I also look at the world and design in general through a new lens, and maybe too much rather than appreciating moments. A lot of times I'll walk in a place and just be like, "Well, man, how would I build this if I were
Hmm.
remodeling this in a game or how is this designed?" It's like,
The creative
and
mind turns on.
yeah, yeah. But I think as a whole, I've become much more appreciative for just the level of effort for anything. Um, and that's barring games. I mean, goes to architecture, paintings,
I see.
music, movies. Um, I will watch them through a more analytical lens, but I also feel like I'm far less quick to judge
I see.
than I was previously, just because I understand the level of effort that goes into something like
It's
this.
interesting that you say that you were a bit more judgy before, because I wouldn't tell that you were judgy towards games when you talk
No,
about
well,
games,
and
because
that's
you seem so passionate about games, right? So
yeah, well, and that's the thing. It's like I wasn't necessarily overly harsh,
okay, okay,
but I would say I'm more able to empathize with a larger array of arts
I
and
see,
creations,
I see, I
more
see,
so because I've dabbled in those things.
I see,
So before I would appreciate them, but I think I appreciate them more fully now
I
than I
see,
would before.
I see.
Um, Like I also used to help, you know, back in like high school. I would help shoot like independent films and that kind of thing, and I got really into like cinematography and then also there was a time where I was very into architecture and interior design of that. So anytime I see a space or a movie or a shot or a building that's like very well put together, before I might have appreciated it, but now I can understand the level of effort that went into it, and it's a whole new level of understanding.
I see.
Um, you know, once you've been in something and participated in something, you can understand and appreciate just that much more how much went into
It's
something.
basically new
And that goes for anything.
perspective. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I think it's probably the biggest way I've changed.
I see. Okay. I have.
Also, I'm more patient.
Oh, okay. Okay.
'Cause
That's
because
that's important at game dev for being so many years as a game dev in this
yeah,
industry. Yeah. That's
you
what I
have
wanted
to
to
be
say. That
because
yeah.
yeah, well, and this was kind of a problem with us early on is, you kind of get distracted and you go, okay, let's make this idea. It's so cool, and then you make it, and then it starts slowing down, and it starts becoming work very quickly. It's no longer the fun idea that you. And then back then we were just like, all right, well, this isn't going anywhere. On to the next
Yeah,
idea
you're growing
because our next
impatient.
idea is better. So you know, you learn just like, no, okay, it's gonna take time. The
Yeah.
fun is gonna run out. Um, but there's a lot of work, but there's a lot of reward as a
True.
result. Like
True.
it's very rewarding to build something and complete something and finish it.
True. True. That's
Having the
true.
patience to stick with it is something that you kind of have to learn the hard way
I think
because a
if
lot of
there is
people,
passion, you will always stick with it. Like no matter what. Like even
yes,
if like
yeah,
you would have like I don't know made like 10 games and you wouldn't meet your own expectations by numbers, I think you would
hmm
still do it because like there is always a chance, a little chance that the next game will be that one for a lot
yeah,
more players. But at the end of the day, that's what is the beauty of being creative person, is that like the real drive is like comes from or coming from the person who wants to make something, right, and not to
right.
achieve something. That's the main goal, is that like you want to put down something that is yours and you know that you made it happen. So yeah.
Well, and the hardest thing that a lot of creatives deal with is failure,
Yeah.
because they put so much
Yeah.
of themselves into their
Demotivates them.
project.
Yeah.
Um, it becomes their identity, and I feel like that is
Your voice got cut out
where you.
again. Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's okay. It's okay.
I think it's a little dangerous to make your art your entire personality and determine your worth as a person based off of the success and level of engagement you get from that art. Because ultimately, your worth as a person is, way more than that. I mean, so what happens a lot is a lot of artists, uh, game devs especially, will put themselves so much into a project and spend so much time on a project, and if it doesn't do well, it just decimates them. And I can speak from experience. It's it's rough dealing with you know failure, and failure is you know can be defined in a lot of ways, but also success can be defined in a lot of
True.
ways.
True.
I
True.
think people should have a tendency to focus more on the success. You know, just getting a game that will run and launch out for people to play is a
Should be
huge achievement that
considered as a
people.
success. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Yes, that's a
Exactly.
success. But what happens a lot of times is, people put everything they have into something, and then when it fails, they get burnout and they don't have the strength
The
or the
burnout thing
will
is an
to
interesting
keep
topic because I
going.
remember Lupe Fiasco talking about it And some students at university, when he had this showcase about his career, asked him that, have you ever burnt out in your music industry career? And he said never. And he said the
Hmm.
reason why is because I'm passionate enough to always keep myself motivated. I always write rhymes. I
Yep.
always write songs every day. There wasn't any day from his start of the career that he wasn't writing songs, even if those songs were so bad that he wouldn't, go for publishing them, that he was still writing songs. And he said that real passion never lets people get burnt out from something that they love. And I agree with that, because like I can name my examples that whenever I, for example, was writing books or writing poems and I wanted to publish them, and I had the fear in myself that like they might not be good enough, I
Mm.
always push myself that I should do it. And even if I don't publish it, I'm doing it because I have emotions that I would like to tell, even if it's only me who is reading it, right? So, and
Yeah.
there are so many examples that I could tell from my perspective, and I'm sure that you could tell so many examples from your perspective as well. So I feel like the burnout thing is just a trend nowadays for people to tell, because like if you're passionate
Well,
enough,
yeah.
I'm not.
Yeah, it's
I'm pretty much
definitely.
sure that like you will keep on going, because like that's what drives you. It's basically
Mhm.
your everyday thing that you want to make, right? It's like for a basketball player, they won't leave basketball just because they lost a game, right? They will keep on
Right.
going and doing basketball. I remember like watching these interviews with very famous basketball players, and they said that like when they sat down with the family gatherings at the end of the week, every time there was a topic that they needed to talk about with their family, with their kids or their wife, they all like they could do and think of was the ball and the game.
Yeah.
They saw an egg and they were, dunking that egg. They were
Yeah.
throwing frees at that court, and it's
Well,
just
and it's like what I said earlier. It's just every time I walk into space now, how would I design this?
exactly,
How would I break
exactly.
this
That's why I'm
apart?
saying that I don't believe in burning out stage when it comes to doing
I
any creative work.
understand.
No, I understand it. I just don't believe it's a
Yeah.
thing. If somebody is passionate enough, they won't leave their project behind.
Right.
Only,
Right.
only, only reason that the person can or should leave their project behind is because they don't have money and they have to pay the bills,
Right.
and they
Right.
have these situations where they want to help their family, their kids be supportive, so they are responsible for another thing that also is
Yes.
important in their
Yes.
life. But other than that, if you have the possibility to do what you would like to do in life and create something that was always there for you, you should do it. Like you will have
Yeah.
so many regrets in your bag if you're not doing it at the end of the day.
Yeah. That's kind of how I feel about it. Yeah, and generally speaking, when I'm talking about burnout, I'm more talking about like the almost like the physical exhaustion that comes from like pushing yourself.
I
And
see.
this goes for like athletes and stuff too.
Yeah,
It's
true,
just like
true, 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 true.
you can all there needs to be a period of rest.
True, true.
Um,
That's true. That's
but
true. But that's way
um,
different from leaving something, right? So that's what I
yes,
meant to say
by
is that
by
like
by
leaving and
burnout, I
resting
mean
is
like
way different. Like
yeah, it's I'm more so mean from the high intensity that comes with the development and like crunch and stuff like that. I don't mean dropping,
yeah, yeah,
gaming
yeah,
entirely
yeah,
because
yeah,
there's again, we had to take a hiatus for a little while because financial responsibilities,
yeah. You
external
mentioned that.
factors.
Yeah,
Life hits you and you don't always have control over
true,
everything
true,
that's
true,
happening.
true.
And things can happen. You have to set some stuff aside until you can get back on track. And
Just
but
like
if
my
I think if
example
you're
that I had
truly
been sick and we
yeah,
had
if
to
you're truly
cancel it. Yeah,
passionate, you try to make your way back to it.
true, true, true.
They say that I think it's 90% of game developers um, quit after their first game, and I think a lot of that comes down to uh, mixed expectations of what it's going to do for them. And again, like I said, they put their everything into a project and it just doesn't do well, or even worse, it's just like it's not that fun. People don't like it. It feels like a personal attack when someone I mean, even I feel this sometimes. It's like if someone leaves a bad review, it kind of sticks with you more
Exactly.
so than even the positive.
Yeah.
And I think that comes from just the nature of what we do is you're always looking for ways to improve, so you have to digest
Sure.
those negative comments. So as a result, they stick with you longer, and then it also feels like a personal attack against you because you've put so much of
And
yourself
you're so
into this
attached to
thing.
it, yeah, yeah.
So I think one of the best skills a dev can learn, especially in early dev, is separating the emotion from the feedback and not taking it so terribly personally, even though it is a very personal thing. Uh, yeah, it's finding that balance. And again, that's what I said. Just I don't think it's healthy to build your entire personality around it. I think it's fine if you are putting
It's
all your
not, but
time and
it's
effort
the
and
most
everything.
honest thing that a creative person can do, in my opinion. So it's not healthy,
Yeah.
but it's the most honest one. Like you mentioned,
Yes.
architecture and paintings and everything. Like in those type of creative form of art, people what did they it was the most honest thing because
Hmm.
they could never do anything other than being honest with their
Yeah.
pen or with their knowledge of like architecture. So I feel like it's a hard topic, and I feel like the real truth sets in the middle,
Yeah,
probably
there's a
because like
balance to be made
yeah,
because it's like you
like you have
want
to
to
learn to separate and
put as
still be
much.
personal as much as you can. Yeah,
Right. Well, it's yeah, it's you when reviewing like feedback and everything, you have to look at their feedback when it comes to things like mechanics and, optimization, bugs. Those are very direct analytical things that you can
true,
take a look at.
true,
But when it comes to like a story or the premise or the art, it's sometimes sometimes you just got to go, "No, you're wrong. This is what I intended." And I think a lot of devs aren't. They don't they're so eager to please that they're not willing to put and make the thing that they want to make. Um which I feel is more of a disservice to them than it is to anyone else. But also, it's a disservice to the people playing your game
yeah.
if
That's
you're
why the example of
very quick.
mixtape. Sorry, no,
Yeah.
go for that. Go for that. Go for it.
Oh, no, that was basically my thought. It's just it's a disservice to everyone if you're not making the game that you really really want to make. Just because some people have a negative reaction to it, or it's not particularly to their taste. And I think that's probably one of the problems of the industry as a whole right now is everyone's trying to make something that appeals to everyone, or they're just trying
True.
to make quick cash grab.
True. That's why, and again, sorry to interrupt you. There was an example of a current game called Mixtape that like a lot of people
Yeah,
hated because like devs decided to go without a streamer mode, and I totally agreed with them because like I even tweeted out
yeah,
that I was so proud of them. Like they got this risky move that they decided not to have streamer mode, and they said music is the most important thing about our game. We built it,
well, yeah.
our
The
game
mixtape.
about and around music, and I think that's what should creative people follow, is that like if you build a game to your vision and it bends to your vision, then you should leave it like that. You shouldn't be like, okay, let's have a streamer mode. And I think that what they did with mixtape is was a very powerful thing. And what made me sad is to read some streamers and some video game journalists said that it's a bad game just because it didn't have streamer mode, so we cannot showcase it. Like it's
Yeah,
stupid. Like you're playing
that's
games
not a
for
fair
fun.
criticism.
Like you're playing games for fun. You shouldn't be saying that it's a bad game just because it didn't have a common thing to have for you as a content creator. Like what the hell? Like
Right.
it's not a must thing to do for developers to have a streamer mode just because it got common. Like, and again, it's the same topic as we talked about. Like if something is common, it doesn't mean that it's good for a game.
Yeah.
Or if a lot of people say that
Yeah.
it's good, it doesn't mean that it's good. Like that's why I feel like these opinions shouldn't be forced against developers, because like at the end of the day there will be some devs that might not risk these things and will say, okay, let's do this, let's do that, what the crowd
Yeah.
says.
Well, a couple years back, there was a lot of debate about the Souls games and then Elden Ring not having setting.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
and
Yeah, yeah,
that was kind of the big backlash before this streamer mode. And mechanically, those games would not be the same if they had
exactly. An
difficulty
easy mode.
settings.
Yeah, yeah,
And this is something we deal with too. It's something that every dev deals with. Anytime you give a player a chance to optimize the fun out of your game, they probably
it won't be fun anymore. I can tell you
yeah
that. Yeah, the more
yeah.
options you have,
So
the less fun you have.
yeah, and it's not to say that you know as devs we shouldn't do our best to accommodate people who are actually interested in the game, but don't change the core of the game to fit people who would never in a
Never
million years be
touch.
interested
Yeah,
in your game.
exactly, exactly. Yeah,
So,
yeah,
adding a difficulty to Elden Ring, for instance, I think would just hurt the game as a whole because a lot of
yeah,
people would choose a suboptimal way to play the game. Um,
yeah. And they would be
you,
successful, and wouldn't be the same experience. It's funny you mentioned Dark
it wouldn't
Souls
be the
and
same. Yeah.
Elden Ring because I remember there is a Hungarian connection to this. It's a very funny one. It's a long story short that there is a YouTube channel called Other Words. They're very famous for making very rage baiting critique
Mm.
towards games. And I remember when the first Dark Souls got released, they made a video like literally the whole video was like 1 hour of ranting about how Dark Souls is a bad game. And Bandai Namco banned that video basically. You can still
Oh,
check it. I will
jeez.
somebody uploaded it and probably downloaded it back then and re-uploaded it, but that guy is not part of the channel anymore, that group, but they are still rage baiting almost every game that is getting released. And that one video got their most views around that time. 1 million views around that
Yeah.
time when YouTube was just starting out. You can imagine how famous that video got. And I remember talking to some friends who never played Dark Souls, and they said that, based off this video, this is a shitty game. This is a very starting out game. And look now, Bandai Namco and From Software games are one of the most like hyped
Yep.
games because even those people who would never sit down to a hardcore game, they are down to sit down and challenge themselves because it was
Yes.
unique
Yes.
and they
Well,
achieved
and
it.
that's
And like it's so stupid that people can criticize everything that is new, although they want fresh takes on games. Like why?
they want fresh, but they not too
Yeah,
fresh because
yeah, not
it
too
scares
fresh
me.
because it's it's not comfortable for me. It's not
Well,
fun anymore.
this is something we're kind of dealing with now with the split combat in mixed space biff. We get a lot of criticisms saying just like, oh, well, you should just let me pick first person and third
Yeah,
person for either mode, or make it just first person shooting, or make it just third person combat. And again, this is something we ran across early on in our development where our publisher at the time and people at the time didn't want us making trackpad movement for our game Deadlock. And, you know, uh, because of some decisions, we decided to shelve it. And it's very sad because the game is still in early access, but it's not the game we had initially intended to make. Now we're happy with what the game is because it is a solid, full experience. But um, eventually we would like to make a first person VR game where you can navigate the world using touchpad movement, and that's the that's the game behind me here. Is that's part of it. You know, I won't go too much into that because it's technically unannounced and it's on the back burner until we to finish mixed space fifth. But that it takes place in the world of our game root. You know, this is like the hacker dungeon that the guy operates from, and then when you there's I don't know if you can see it, but there's like a little headset behind me in the middle of the room, and you'll walk over and you put that on, and then kind of like Tron or the
love
Matrix or
it, love
whatever,
it, love it.
you'll get thrown into like a neon world, and then it's the style of
I
like
hope you can make
the
this
game.
game too. I really
Yeah,
hope.
it's actually it's pretty far along. We have like all the different gun mechanics and like throwing stuff, and um we hit some hitches at one point, and also our when we were making it, our hardware wasn't really that strong. Like our graphics cards were like barely capable of running VR. So it's something we'll definitely come back to because we feel like the people who initially played Deadlock, all like 12 of them, deserve some sort of game that we had mentioned. But
True, true.
yeah,
And I
yeah,
respect that, man.
it's very difficult to kind of balance, the world's expectations
And your own
versus like what
vision,
you want
yeah.
to do.
Yeah.
Um, but occasionally, the game will push through despite all the noise. Dark Souls is a perfect example.
Yeah.
Everyone said that game was way too hard.
Yeah. I remember that, yeah.
It's not hard enough.
Yeah, I agree. I
So
agree. I agree. If you learn it,
yeah,
you can master it, yeah. Yeah. Okay.
yeah.
Are you
So
down to go into some chat questions, by the way? I have some
yeah,
more
absolutely.
questions, but I've seen that there are some questions, so that's why.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Okay, I missed so many questions here. Okay. Okay, let me see. Mini is asking in Hungarian and we'll retranslate it to English. What is that one thing that you are trying to get attached the most when you work on video games, when the outside world is too noisy or has too much of a negative noise? What is that one thing that helps you push through?
Hmm.
And the other question is, how can you jump over these obstacles, these hard times in your life as a game dev, and how these life cycles, these negative life cycles or depressive life cycles affect the everyday work when you work on video games? That's 3 questions from Mini.
Okay. So that's a good question. So let me just repeat the question. So how the, I guess, like news cycle and everything, and just everything that's going on in the world affect our game development?
Yes, correct.
Okay. And what was the other question?
There's a question that what is that one thing that you're trying to get attached with to help you push over when the whole world has too much of a negative influence on you or noise?
Gotcha. Well, yeah, that's actually great question. So something we've been kind of pushing for specifically with Captain Space Biff is just kind of making a lighthearted game. So there's a lot of negativity regarding everything. I mean, you go online and everything tends to trend towards negative because it's what drives engagement. So in McSpace specifically, we're kind of going for a more lighthearted feel, and there's a little bit of a commentary on things like just capitalism and AI and just oppressiveness when it comes to like large corporations or governments or anything of the sort. So it is a little bit of a critique of the current nature of everything that's going on in the world, everything that's been going on in the world, and just how people operate in general. But it's done through a lens that's lighthearted, and
I
there's
see.
kind of a light at the end of the tunnel. It's ultimately hopeful. So it's just like everything might not be going exactly your way in the world, but there is always a hope for a better tomorrow. And our character Captain McSpacebiff kind of exudes that. He's facing insurmountable odds. He doesn't really get a lot of help, and the people around him aren't that bright or very appreciative. But you know that doesn't mean that it's a completely hopeless situation. And we found that there's a lot of doomer type funk in the air when it comes to a lot of new games. It sucks and it's going bad and it's going to continue to go bad, and you're the standout against this. But it's just in our game it's like, well, things might not be going as well as they could be, but we're going to keep working at it, and we're going to do everything in our power to have a better tomorrow. So yeah, I think pushing that message, showing that it's things are going to be okay, I think.
It's interesting
um
to see what you have said with this is that like I feel like especially story games became more mature in a way that
Mm-hmm.
like they don't have this spooky or funny vibe next to the very like
Yeah.
deep topics, because I, like I said with the example of Destroy All Humans games, that they had these very critique and mirror reflection of like our past and our present and our future about humanity, but they still had this very funny vibe, you know, that they
Yeah.
weren't
Yeah.
like preaching you but still teaching you in a way. And I love those
Exactly.
games, and I feel like nowadays, I'm not saying it's bad, because, for example, I love the Last of Us series, and they but
Oh
they
yeah. I
they
mean, it's
they became very
amazing.
mature if you think about that, and I feel like that's why some people didn't like the Last of Us games, because like
Yeah.
they what they it's very harsh to say, but I always say this. For example, me, I love Last of Us games, but for those who
Yeah.
didn't, I feel like it's either they do not understand the story of it, or it's either they knew it's them that they are watching in the mirror
Yeah.
by the game, you know? Because there are so many messages towards the players in that game that tells you that, you
Mm-hmm.
know, humanity sucks, you know? You might be just like
Yeah.
this person who is killing or, you know, doing bad things. And it's something that people don't want to experience and consume. Either it's a
Yeah.
game or a movie or a music, that you are not a good person. You are just, you know, an evil person, and people don't want to hear it, even if they
Yeah.
might be that evil person at the end of the day.
Yeah. And what we've found is when you go in the opposite direction of something that's completely lighthearted, there's almost no message at all.
Yeah,
Um,
you can raise the message. Yeah, exactly, exactly,
yeah.
exactly.
So it's just like, yeah, it's lighthearted. I feel like there's a balance to be struck, though.
True,
You know, it's
true,
just like you can be aware of the situation at hand, but also, realize that there is the potential for a better tomorrow. And
true, true.
I feel like everything is kind of tilted more towards just like, oh, it's all gonna suck and everything the next day is gonna be worse than the previous. It's just like, well, I mean, if you think that,
You
sure,
probably end up
because
in the
it's a
trash bin.
self-fulfilling
Yeah,
prophecy.
exactly, exactly,
But
exactly.
it's I think, you can take a look and be and realistically look at the way things are going
True.
and acknowledge that some things are better than how they were. Some things are worse,
Yeah, true, true,
but
true, true, true.
but you can always make your best effort for a better tomorrow. And
True,
that goes from like a worldwide perspective and just like a helping your neighbor perspective and
true,
working on yourself.
true.
And I think a lot of Captain Space, you're kind of coming across these guys who are a little bit helpless and they don't know what they're doing, and maybe you don't even know what you're doing, but you're trying your best to solve the situation, and there's some light at the end of the tunnel. Um, so
True.
yeah, I think that kind of thing has been lost in media. So
Yeah.
we're trying to bring it back, and that's not to say that we're not going to make some gritty games in the future, but for this
Yeah, I
one,
wasn't saying these
kind of
are
keeping
bad
it
games. Don't get
lighthearted.
me wrong. Like I said, I love Last of Us. It's just like
No, no, and
these
I
games
do too.
matured. These games matured, and I think what also is a problem is that like a lot of players became more sensitive when it comes to experiencing stories. Like
Yes.
back when I was playing, for example, all GTA games or all Destroy All Humans games, people weren't
Mhm.
that sensitive to the topics of politics or racism or anything. They weren't
Mhm.
like they were understanding that it's just a game that has
Yes.
topics,
Yes.
and it's not trying to preach you anything. It just has a message that you might consume or might not. Nowadays I
Yeah.
feel like people are too judgy about messages when it comes to video games, because they feel like these games are trying to preach, and even if
Right.
these games would down on the road to preach, it's not a problem in my opinion, because like
Yeah,
that's
no.
that's a creative form of like giving your opinion or your standpoint, or
Yeah,
some
it's knowing.
lessons that you learned over the way, and
Yep.
make a conflict with the player that's, hey, wake up, this is happening, AI is taking over the
Mhm.
world, like you said. Like it's
Mhm.
it's making a conflict. That's how we learn, that's how we grow. And people, that's why I said, that's why a lot of people didn't like Dark Souls, like you mentioned, and I made this example with the Other World YouTube channel, is that like whenever it's a conflict in a game, that might kill the fun for a lot of players, although it shouldn't.
Mhm. Yeah.
Because we grew up on a game like Crash Bandicoot, right? Like my profile
Yeah,
picture is, and
yeah,
it was a hard game. It's still to this day, it's a hard
yeah. It's
game. Like
tough.
you had to learn, you had to, sometimes cheese the maps in order to speedrun or something, but you had to learn all these aspects. And I feel like what I miss telling you is that like when we talk about the streamer topic and the content creator topic is that like I feel like even though I'm streaming too on Twitch for more than 12 years now, I feel like
Oh,
streaming
wow.
a bit ruined the whole video game industry in a way that like
Yeah.
a lot of people prefer now to watch video games, like you mentioned for yourself as well, when you don't have time. But it's not a good thing if you think about it, because like back like 10 or 16 years ago, we had to read the small guides that we could find in magazines in order to get through a level if you couldn't get through that level. Now what you do, I don't have money or I don't have time for buying a game, let's watch it. It's just stupid.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm trying to for myself, for my content, all I do nowadays is just I always stream 1 hour from a new game. And then if I do the playthrough, I tell people not to watch it. Even if it's against my viewership,
Yep.
I tell
That's
them not to
awesome.
watch it and rather buy the game and then come
Hey, go
back.
play it.
And
It's
then come back and talk
yeah.
about it because we have a common ground and common topic and common conversation. But if they are watching at my stream, it's not the same experience.
Yeah.
And I realized it the hard way because I felt like, man, it's not the same. It's not the same, man. It's like,
It's really not.
and I don't even
And I
understand how
remember
people can just watch games. Like for me, it's like, yeah, for sure, there's an addition when a streamer plays it because like there's an additional thoughts or something. But like most people, they just bring their boring faces, go silent and play the games. For me, that's boring. For me, that's that's not the way I would like to consume a video game. Like I want to be the part of the game, not like a passive aggressive person who is like just watching and there's no controller or keyboard or mouse in my area to play it.
well, the biggest part about games that make them so different than any other art form is your actual interaction with
Exactly.
um
Exactly.
and I feel like if you're not the one controlling the agency in the game, there's not a lot of reason, like you're missing more than half of the experience.
True. True.
um and I think there's some fair criticism with you know not to diss on mixtape, but I feel like there was some criticisms there from people who thought the game wasn't so much of a game as it was an interactive
Yeah,
movie.
but it was
Choices
never
were made.
meant to be. That's the thing.
Well, and
That's
that's what
why
I was gonna say.
they never
I think that's
promoted
why
the
it's
game.
good
It's
they
like
didn't
a
have a
game.
streamer mode.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
think that's good why they didn't have a streamer mode, because if someone were to sit down and just watch another streamer play it, you know, then they're not experiencing it at all.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
and same things with like these like story games. I feel like just because it's a very cinematic game doesn't mean you shouldn't sit down.
Exactly, and it doesn't mean that it's not fun. And that's why I'm saying, even
Yes,
if it's harsh
exactly.
or not to say, but like some people, and it will be very harsh to say from me, but I always speak with honesty, is that like some people just emotionally dumb to consume some
Yeah,
stories of some games. That's the fact. Like some people won't understand sad stories because they haven't experienced, for example, loss. How that person would understand losing someone if they never experienced it? They will never understand it, and it's just like that story will be boring. Or if a person is going through hard times in a relationship and they are watching, a very happy movie about love, they won't understand it because they will bring their own shit to the table when experiencing that movie, that happy ending movie. And that's what people have to be educated by, is that like your mood doesn't mean that something is not for you or something is not fun or something is not good. It's just that you are in that mood and you are blocking yourself from being able to understand it the way it is. It's just simple. Nothing else.
yeah,
Nothing more, nothing less.
yeah. People are very often afraid to dive into something that isn't necessarily for them.
Exactly. And
I
it's again
feel like
honesty and
you're
being
limiting
risk. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's just sad.
yeah. That was a good question.
Yeah, very good question. And thank you for your answer as well. Thank you for the question and answer as well. Electronic said, by the way, yo, the background drive me crazy. I like it. Smart move, by the way. Oh yeah, 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 yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, my virtual hacker den
Yeah, I love
with
it, love it, love
some
it.
promo for
Yeah, I love
$7.
it
But
too. You gotta do the promotion, man. That's the most
yeah, you
important
gotta do the
thing.
promo.
Yeah. I'm Sim. I'm Sim. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing the name correctly. Cook said on the subject of devs working to bring back games from their youth or from a time long past. You often hear them talk about recreating how it felt rather than what it was objectively. Do you find yourself pondering that all making Space Beef, or does it not enter into mind such? Much. Sorry. Misrated.
Okay. That's a good question. So, essentially balancing the feeling of nostalgia versus like the mechanics of the games and how they played at the time. That's interesting because I found recently, I mean, just in media in general, you see a lot of nostalgia. Right? Like people are very quick to kind of try and imbue their game with stuff that feels like it's from a very specific generation without maybe necessarily bringing in the mechanics of that generation. So, like for instance, like you see a lot of PlayStation 1 graphics style games right now that mechanically aren't there's like a there's like a dissonance between the two where
Yeah.
it's like you'll play like a new game but look like an old game. Um, we're kind of in a weird way we're kind of going the other route where our game looks more like new games but mechanically plays more similar to, mid 2000s style shooters and action games. It's not something we consider too much, but we do realize that a lot of modern mechanics in games have been added in a way to smooth things over for players. So things that would maybe necessarily be excluded because they feel like a little janky. We're not afraid to put those things in our game. Um, so, for instance, a lot of games have moved away from having things like inventory logs or anything of that sort because there's a lot of time you have to spend in menus, and the more time you spend in menus, it doesn't look good on stream. If
Yeah.
someone's fiddling
Again,
around with
streaming. Yeah.
yeah, it comes down to streaming or things like mantling mechanics, for instance.
Yeah.
Like you like jump up against a ledge, it will auto clamber you
Or slide mechanics,
to
crouch.
yeah,
Yeah.
slide mechanics, all these
All these
things
simple ones. Yeah.
um where it's just like, as much as I love the Uncharted games, sometimes when you're like climbing through an area, it just feels like you're just like holding a direction and versus like an old platformer game like Crash Bandicoot where you're like having to specifically time your jumps between things just to use like two Naughty Dog games as a example. So I think yeah, a lot of modern games have kind of smoothed over the interaction, which I think is fine if you want to build that type of game. But we're doing like more binary input when it comes to a lot of our stuff, and um, you know, as a result, our game might not feel as smooth as a lot of modern games. But I feel like the more control we give the player, the better it is, and that's a big thing we've found with that we particularly didn't care for in like the new Doom game, for example. Um, back in the day, it was all about moving around very, very quickly and shooting as many enemies as possible. And in the new Dooms, they added clambering and then glory kills. Which don't get me wrong, glory kills are awesome. I love doing them. But it's something that takes away player control, even for like a small moment of time. So we're kind of trying to shy away from that kind of stuff. We might end up adding it if it feels good and right for the game, but um, we've always been big fans of making sure the player has control of their actions at all times. So yeah, that's a good question because you see a lot of modern games that are saying they're like the classics, but mechanically are adding in newer features that are kind of quality of life things, but sometimes the quality of life things smooth over a lot of the player agency. So
True, true, very true, very
yeah,
true.
great question.
Thank you for the question and answer as well. Thank you. Thank you, thank you. Any more questions, ladies and gentlemen? Any more question? Any more? Let us know.
Yeah, look. All right.
I think.
Oh man, looks like we're hitting the 3-hour mark.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, I love that. I love that, man.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
And I appreciate your honesty, but
yeah,
and I can talk about games all day, so we have that in common. Yeah, yeah. Any more questions, ladies and gentlemen? Any more questions? One thing I wanted to ask closer to the end of our interview is that, like, our conversation is that, like, are you planning to release your games to consoles as well? And what about physical editions? Because I'm a huge fan of physical editions. So let's move to a bit more of a like boring topic, but like still not boring for me.
Oh, there's no such thing as a boring.
No, I know. I'm just joking. Yeah. I'm just joking.
Yeah. So, we do plan on releasing on console at some point.
Okay.
Right now, the game does function with Steam Deck, so that's something we tested recently,
Okay.
and something we've been working on since the very, very beginning of our reboot of Captain McSpace Biff. Has been making sure that it works fully with controller.
Okay.
As of right now, it has full controller support, where you can navigate menus, switch between melee modes, everything. So obviously, without funding, immediately going for consoles would be a little difficult. Dev kits and all this sort of stuff, but the game is designed to work on consoles. And we've also been working very hard on optimizing the game so it would run well on consoles because on PC you have a little bit of leeway with changing settings and everything, but when it comes to consoles, you kind of need a locked visual style, and that was the big thing that we were working on. That we wanted to make sure that the lowest end version of the game settings more or less mirrored the highest settings of the game. Only difference is things like resolution and maybe like number of particles on screen. But
I see.
Yeah, we've been working really, really hard to make sure that Captain McSpace Biff will, at some point be ready for consoles. But yeah, we've been testing out Linux builds to make sure that it Steam Deck. It seems to run pretty well on Steam Deck. Um, you know, in the more graphically intense areas with a lot of combat, and, sometimes dip to the 40 FPS range, but generally speaking, it hits about 50 to 60 FPS on Steam Deck. So Steam Deck is a little bit underpowered, so I imagine pretty well on things like the Switch 2 or PlayStation 5 or
I never
whatever.
cared about FPS, to be honest, in games, because I remember myself playing Drakengard 3 and it had like 30 FPS on the PlayStation 3, and I enjoyed the heck out of that game. So it's like,
well, I mean, I played Halo 3 Xbox.
Your voice is cutting out a bit, by the way. Sorry to interrupt.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's okay. It's okay.
I played Halo on the Xbox 360, and that game was locked at 30 FPS. But on top of being locked at 30 FPS, it had terrible frame timing. Like the input lag was really high. So we've been working really hard to make sure the input lag is low, even if you do lock it at 30. So yeah, we also added in stuff like aim assist for controllers to make sure that the shooting feels good. It's something we're still working on because we're not a huge fan of overly aiming, because we found that kind of the later Halo games it was so much that you almost just couldn't miss a shot. So that's something we're tuning, but obviously the game is designed PC first, but it works well. Honestly, there's times where it feels better to play with a controller because I think
I'm more of a controller guy. That's why I asked, and I'm a fan of physical editions too. So I hope one day.
I've become I've become a controller guy. Just sometimes I just want to like lean back and play a game without like having to hunch over my keyboard. And so yeah, it's gonna if not consoles, at the very least, it will have controller support.
See? Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. Imsim says can confirm runs great on Steam Deck.
Oh, Imsim Cook. He's a friend of ours.
Okay, nice.
He's actually the one who let us borrow his Steam Deck
to
play the game.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because we don't have a Steam Deck, but we have a friend with a Steam Deck.
Nice, very nice.
Imsim Cook actually, he works as a QA guy for Wolf-Eye Studios. I won't get too much into that, but those are the guys, a lot of the team who worked on the original Dishonored games.
Okay.
So yeah.
Nice.
Another dev in the chat.
Dev in the chat. Yeah, love that. Okay.
Yeah.
What would be the dream game that you would like to make? That would be
man.
That would be one of my closing questions for today.
Okay. Well, to be honest, if we had full funding, make Space Biff for sure.
Okay.
Just because, originally how it started, I mean, it's kind of how we got started as a company, and it's something we've been thinking about over the years. I mean, our dream game would be like mixed Space Biff with co-op with multiplayer. And having, multiplayer matches, multiplayer levels, things like firefight, like wave defense, that kind of stuff. That would probably be my personal dream game. Taken to its full potential. If not mixed Space Biff, probably our game Denizen. Denizen is another game that we've kind of shelved in the meantime because it's just such a large endeavor. I mean, it's for one, the graphics are less stylized and more realistic, and so ultimately it'd be more graphically intensive, more difficult to optimize, and difficult to put together. But yeah, the way that game was heading, it had some really good potential, and it was very fun. And that game is actually very dark and gritty in terms of just like tone and atmosphere. Not overly gory or anything, but just in terms of like tone, very very somber and almost spooky. Um, and there's some stories there in terms of like our storytelling ability. Denizen is probably the best opportunity to expand on that.
I see.
And that game for sure has, I would say, more of an imprint of us in terms of like writing. So in terms of just like a fun, fully fledged game, Cat McSpace Biff all the way, man. So hopefully,
I hope.
Hopefully, I'm hoping we can find some funding and get a good publisher or private equity or something to make the game we want to make. But even in its current state, I feel like we could put out something that's pretty good. To really push it to where it can be, I think we would need some funding.
I see.
Or just more time. So yeah.
Before I ask my last question, I would like to say that we talked about a lot of topics here, really. Is there something that you would like to add before I ask my last question that we might not touch, that you would like to talk about, or I haven't asked from you?
Something I would like to specifically. Well, I would just say if anyone here is looking to become a gamer, I would try not to get disheartened by the level of volatility that floats around. I know a lot of people diss indie devs for one. There's like a thing that that goes around that says indie devs make the same game over and over and over, and no one cares. Indie games should be free. All indie games should be free, which is insane to me. I would say if you're really passionate about it, just make something. Start small. You know, don't start with your dream game. I know we just don't start with your dream game because you know you don't want to get frustrated halfway through because you don't know enough to make it. It's taken us 14 years to get back to our dream game. Um, so just start where you can. Don't be too discouraged, and just make something fun that you want to make. And if it doesn't do well, just get back up on that horse and make another one. It's not the end of the world. Most successes when it comes to anything, they they it's almost never their first try. So yeah,
True.
just keep at it.
Very true. Very true.
Yeah.
Summarizing everything that you have said about the game development phase of your games that you were doing with your friends and alone too, I realized that like you mentioned these examples where like the Kickstarter campaign for your game
Mhm.
haven't met your expectations. Then you had the publisher that didn't give you a good deal, and basically we could say with a harsh word that fucked you over. So in the future, how will you be able to like decide what would be good for your project? Because now it's a risk of like if you go back to the Kickstarter thing or if you choose a publisher
Mhm.
again, uh, who will be not the perfect one for your game, you might again hurt your project and yourself as well. So what
Yeah.
would be the best option you think
So the
now
best
for
option
the
for
game?
us,
Because it's risky, right, to go back to those two
yeah.
options. And in my opinion, the best option probably for the project would be by self-funding. That's why I'm asking you that.
Yes,
Do you
yes.
think like you could still risk and go back to the ages of Kickstarter or to find a publisher and risk again?
So right now we are self-funded. Ultimately, we're working full-time jobs and then evening, and we're using those full-time jobs to pay our bills. The problem with that is, as we get older, and especially with Will and his family, he wants to be spending more time with his family, and we just have financial obligations and obligations outside of our game development. You know, you don't want to neglect other aspects of life forever for game dev.
True, true.
There if you want to keep doing it, you need to find um because otherwise you will burn out, like physically burn out, and have health problems, and that's never good. So yeah, we've been working on McSpace Biff in Unreal for about 3 years now, part time, maybe a little bit longer, because we started in Unity, eventually branched over in. But the best route for us, realistically speaking, would probably be with a publisher that would provide actual funding for the development of the game, but then also provide marketing on the back end. Because one of the hardest things you can do as a developer is find an audience for your game and make sure that they get it. Now that said, um, we will probably attempt to see how it's going to go in terms of self-funding. So right now we're working on a demo for Captain Space Biff,
I
and
see.
it's actually pretty close to being done. Um, they say your demo should probably only be about 15 to 20 minutes. Right now our demo is sitting at about an hour and a half. So it's basically a small game. Um, we're probably going to push it out, not this next fest, but the one over in I think August. Try and get some feedback on the game from players, do some private beta testing before then, and then kind of ballpark how we're doing based off of like wish lists and what needs changing in terms of like glitches and that kind of thing.
I see.
Um, if it just goes gangbusters and we get thousands and thousands of wish lists, we might continue the self-funding route, because then, it's more assured that we're
Yeah,
gonna launch with
to have
some
success.
backing,
Yeah,
with some success. Um, if that, if we find that it's difficult to get the word out about the game and get interest and eyes on the game, we would probably need the help of them. So,
I see.
um, but when going through that route, we would look very, very deeply at their track record, and then also kind of how they are currently handling the market. So
Okay.
that was something we were back when we were young. I think 18, 19. We were, our game Root was actually one of the first games to be greenlit on Steam. So we were actually able to push the game out on Steam without a publisher, but we didn't know how to market our game, so we kind of
Yeah, that's why I
looked
asked
around
this
for
question
a
from you. Is
publisher.
that I feel like even though you feel like it would be a good way to search for a publisher, I feel like your game is good enough with its mechanics and
Yeah,
story and idea that you could go on the road by without publisher. Yeah,
yeah, it's not impossible. Mainly right now is we're getting to a point where our jobs are like 9 to, well, our main jobs are taking up
yeah,
so
like you
much
have
of
to
our
balance your
time.
time. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
In order to
like
make the
I
game,
I work.
promote it. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, and we don't know if that would be realistic, and also we want to continue making games, so it's not like we want to quit our jobs to launch a game
I
and
see.
then,
I see.
have it
Yeah,
not work out and then have to find a new job. So, um yeah, we ultimately we would love going the self-funding route. If we had, enough wish lists and feedback and traction, we would probably just push through, um, and then launch it ourselves. But, you know, funding would be very, very helpful because we can co-op and multiplayer, and
yeah.
ultimately we
More
think it would be a
features.
better game if
Yeah,
on it full time. So ultimately, we're going to do what's best for the game. Um, and that might just be running a Kickstarter campaign would be very difficult, just because we would have to balance it with our jobs, and
yeah.
we've known other devs in the past, and you know the amount of funding we would need, maybe we wouldn't hit it. Yeah. So yeah, if we were going the route of publisher, we very, very careful to make sure that it's a good deal for everyone. We get the funding we need to develop the game, or even if we don't get a lot of funding, just make sure that they have a good track record in promoting the game, because that's the main thing, is getting the game in front of
True,
people.
true,
We're
true.
pretty confident that if we could get enough people to see the game, it would do well, because we're confident in the game itself. So it's just a matter of how we get to that point.
I see.
But yeah, we should have a demo coming up in probably a few months, and then
Okay,
also I'm working on a trailer for the game, which kind of goes. It's like a cinematic trailer, but there's like a gameplay.
I
So
see. I see.
hopefully we can bolster some traction, because right now we've been so focused on the game, we haven't really been marketing or pushing it that much. So,
Okay.
and also there's so much vaporware these days that people aren't really interested in a game until there's something you can play of it,
True, true, very
which is
true, very
which is
true.
understandable.
Yeah.
So yeah, hopefully we'll have something in the coming months, and
There is one more
maybe have some
thing, by the
funding.
way, that came into my mind to ask. It's like an extra question, and I always like to challenge my guests with honest questions. But like,
Yeah, sure.
it's not that I'm trying to be cocky or something. But like, I hope you won't mind this question. So since our conversation, you mentioned a lot of times that your friend has bigger responsibilities sometimes, and like he's taking away the time from like the game
Mm,
developments in order to be with his family and being responsible for his family. uh, if that ever happened, that he would like turn into a solo dev because of these responsibilities of his? I know it's a very much of a personal question, and I hope you don't mind it, but like you brought it up, I'm always carefully listening to everything that my guests say, and I always develop those questions from those answers as well. And you brought it up a couple of times, so I feel like you have this worry in your mind. If I'm not correct, prove me wrong. It's just I have this thought in my mind that if that would happen, would you keep continuing your games as a solo dev or form a new team around yourself? Because you brought it up a lot of times that he is the one who is like taking away the time from the game development because of his responsibilities, which is not a bad thing, don't get me wrong, like I'm not blaming him or anything, but you just brought it up a couple of times. That's why this question developed up to till this point in my mind, so I asked it.
Well, for one, I don't see a world where both of us ever stop doing game development. Even if I mean, he's just as passionate about it as I am, and we work very, very well as a two-man team, and we help balance each other out.
Yeah, that's why I'm asking now, it. You just mentioned.
If there were ever a situation where he couldn't work on games for whatever reason, I don't think I would abandon game development.
Okay.
I would maybe have to take some time off in order to brush up.
So it means that you guys rely on each other. That's what I meant to ask.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we both wear many hats. I mean, he's responsible for basically all the programming in the game.
I see.
I do the audio, the animations, and the level design, and then also there's like a lot of overlap on those two things, but he does most of the gameplay programming, and currently I'm trying to brush up a little bit on blueprint for like level blueprinting.
I see.
That kind of thing. But he carries the brunt of the work when it comes to the actual programming, and then we work with each other a lot to figure out the actual like design and everything of the game, like how the enemies should work. Like I'll give him a lot of input, like based off of like how the level is, and then we'll kind of sit down and fiddle around, and he'll make something, and then I'll test it, and then, so yeah, I don't see a world where we're not both working games. Some aspect, even if he had to step back a bit, I think he would still be involved in game dev. Same thing for me. If something ever happened in my life, like for instance, like if I were to lose a job or something, I spend all my time looking for a new job, and I can't work on games as much. I would still try to make the effort to work. But that said, if for whatever reason there was a world where he couldn't work on games, I think I would just take some time and learn the blueprint system in Unreal a little bit more thoroughly, and probably try and continue the project until eventually he would either be able to join back in or finish the project. But no, I don't see a world where I'm not making games in some capacity or working on something related to games.
Thank you for your honest answer. Sorry, by the way, I didn't mean to be very personal on this topic. It's just like I heard it's like you painted this picture where your friend is like taking away the time from the game development towards the family. That's why I asked it, because I've seen a lot of team members go in a separate way when starting these stories. That's why I asked, because I was interested if you would be down on the road to still develop your game.
Ultimately,
to start together.
This is what I was saying earlier.
I hope. Don't get me wrong. I hope it won't be the case. So that's very important to notice that. Like,
no,
it's just a personal thing.
Yeah. Well, and like I was saying before, I think it's not healthy to make your entire life your project.
But you're still doing it, right? And I can tell you that you say this, but you're still doing it, which is great in my opinion. So don't get me wrong, it's great, and it's great to hear that you have so much passion to push through so many years, and it's rare. It's getting more rare that people stick to something. And I feel like even though it's not healthy, I feel like that's the beauty of being unhealthy, but still have that. It sounds weird, but at the same time, I think it's understandable that it's like it's a creative process that you might sacrifice your own life with your own blood, let's say, or tears, but you still give it your all, and you will have that baby, born by your own hands.
yeah, it's and
That's the
there's days
melancholy
where
beauty, let's say, of being
yeah,
creative. Yeah.
yeah, it's like sometimes you just don't have it in you, but you just kind of keep pushing through anyway.
Exactly. Exactly. Exactly.
But
Exactly.
the main thing is doing it in a way that's sustainable, so you can do it for the long haul. Um, and that's something we're kind of butting up against now. We're getting older,
That's the
so
real life video game that we all play.
yeah, it's I can't stay up till 4 in the morning
Yeah.
and then
It's not
go to my
happening
job
anymore.
at 8 in the morning and then it not have detrimental
Yeah.
impact either to my day job or my health
True.
or anything of that sort. So, I
True.
mean, I still kind of burn the candle at both ends a lot of days. I work 8 to 6 at my job, and then I'll have dinner with my girlfriend, and then from 7 till 2 in the morning I'll work on the game. But it's getting to the point where it's not quite sustainable,
True.
and
True. True.
the
You have limits as a
you
person, a
know
human.
yeah,
Yeah.
you have limits, and
Yeah. You have to
also
accept it. Yeah.
after working a 9 to 10 hour day at your day job, the energy and focus
It
you
will
have
affect you.
at the end of
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
day, it's not as good. And that's not to say I'm burning out on game development. It's just
Yeah.
you gotta balance it.
True.
And the same
True.
thing with him. He's got two daughters, and they're very young, and they require a lot of
True.
attention.
True. True. True.
He's
True.
got to take care of his family, and but yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be able to do this without Will. I mean, he's been he's half the team. So,
Yeah, like I
you
said, I
know.
really hope that you guys will stay together and form a team
Oh yeah.
forever because that's
Well, I mean, I think it's very unlikely that we won at this point. Just, we pushed through so much, and yeah, I think and people are starting to kind of take notice finally. So,
I hope so.
I
I
think
hope so. You guys
I
deserve
think
it.
this
You
one's
guys
going to be
deserve it.
good.
Yeah. Thank you, man. Thank you. I appreciate
Yeah,
your
of
honesty
course.
about every topic. And thanks to everyone who, by the way, asked questions and was part of this episode of my Love Live show and this
Yeah.
conversation. Thank you, everyone. It was a long run, and I appreciate every bits
Yeah,
and
very
pieces
very long run.
of your honesty and every topic. And yeah, like I said, I will need some more of your minutes of stream. But for those who are watching us live or will be watching back the VOD version on Twitch or on YouTube, feel free and check it out. The Max Space Biff. I'm rambling my
Yeah.
mind. So many thoughts in my head. Yeah, sorry.
No worries.
Captain Max Space Biff game on Steam. Like our friend here said, soon Steam demo is rolling up. I will
Yep.
announce it when it's up on my Discord page as well, or in my Discord group as well. And yeah, be on the lookout for other games as well from our friend here and his other friends too.
Yep.
And yeah,
Yeah, if you're
same.
interested, Captain McSpaceBiff demo coming out soon. Go ahead and wishlist it. And then if you're a fan of stealth action first person shooters, we have a game called Root on Steam. And then if you like wave defense neon shooters, we have a game called Deadlock on Steam. Not to be confused with the Valve Deadlock. So yeah, some cool stuff coming soon.
Be on the lookout for
Thanks for
those.
having me. This has been
Yeah.
awesome.
Thank you, my man. Thank you that you joined us for today's episode.